director of ICE to appear in federal court to explain why the Trump administration has not been giving detained immigrants their right to a bond hearing. Head of ICE Todd Lyons could be held in contempt if he doesn't show. Some of President Trump's strongest supporters are taking a step back after ICE agents have killed 2 people in Minneapolis.
To be clear, Texas Governor Greg Abbott blames Democratic leaders in Minnesota for the violence, saying they lack respect for law enforcement. At the same time,
they, being the White House, need to recalibrate on what needs to be done to make sure that that respect is going to be reinstilled, and that's not an easy task.
Abbott, on the Mark Davis Show podcast, says the focus of the administration and ICE should remain on removing people in the country illegally. Jim Ryan, ABC News, Dallas.
Locally, a man who was held in jail for 6 days after being shot at a No Kings protest in Salt Lake City is speaking out about the recent shooting deaths in Minnesota. Arturo Gamboa brought a rifle to the Salt Lake City protest last summer and ended up getting shot by a March peacekeeper. Gamboa says he's not surprised by what's happened in Minneapolis.
Renee Good and Alex Preddy, once a phenomenon hits your living room, then you have more of an understanding of the intensity of it.
He says he hopes what's happening in Minnesota will encourage people to get out to the street and protest what's been happening. Your money at this moment, the Dow down 373 points to 49,038. Coming up, we've got emergency traffic affecting you in Provo, though they did just reopen all the main flow lanes, so that's some good news. We'll check traffic next. KSL News Time 9:02.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Are you on the hunt for your next big hunt? Then head to huntexpo.com because that's where it starts. The Hunting Expo is coming to Salt Lake City February 12th to 15th. It's the biggest hunting show in the West. There's hundreds of guides and outfitters, plus your shot at Utah's top 200 hunting permits in a drawing. Parma Lee, Coffey Anderson, and Caleb Austin are all performing live. Book your next hunt, see the latest gear, and apply for Utah's biggest bucks and bulls at the Hunting Expo and huntexpo.com.
Are you living with dry AMD? If so, you could be on the road to geographic atrophy, or GA, a condition that leads to retinal cell death and permanent vision loss. But with Izervay, you can
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay slows GA progression by targeting a key source of retinal cell death, which may help preserve your vision longer. Izervay, or Avastin Captid Pegol, is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
Emergency traffic brought to you by UCCU. Transfer savings, earn more. UCCU, love where you bank. Update us, Cormac.
Yeah, this is due to a crash in Provo, northbound I-15 at University Avenue. Like you said, Andy, they've opened up the lanes, but those delays are still there, starting at 400 South in Springvale, and it's heavy and slow, really stop and go until you pass the cleanup around University Avenue. They are blocking that right shoulder just at that on-ramp as well. Otherwise, I-15 looking pretty okay all the way around to the point of the mountain, and then you got some light delays. You got some delays starting at 4500 South and reaching up to 13 South in Salt Lake. Then you have a crash still in southbound I-15 up in Clearfield. They are blocking the right shoulder, causing some light delays just after 650 North. And we still have those heavier delays eastbound on I-215 southbound from I-15 to State Street. Are you tired of dealing with missing teeth? Are you ready to ditch the dentures? The experts at Stubbs Dental can change your life with dental implants. Get started at StubbsDental.com today. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather today, partly cloudy with some sun coming in later. It is kind of sunny right now. Highs will be in the upper 40s. Rest of the week similar, though tomorrow there's a slight chance of moisture. Right now, though, it is 28 degrees in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Eye on the Hill 2026. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
Well, the House Health and Human Services Committee will hear 3 bills today, or soon, related to transgender youth. One bill, House Bill 193, deals with public funding for certain transgender medical treatments and procedures. House Bill 258, deals with provisions related to insurance coverage, but the one we want to drill down on today is House Bill 174. It's sponsored by Rex Ship, and it deals with provisions related to cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers to minors.
So we have with us on the line Representative Rex Ship, the bill sponsor. Thanks for joining us, Representative.
Hi, you're welcome. Glad to speak with you.
So I've looked at this bill that's online as well as an amendment by Representative Ward, and I'm wondering if you could just tell our listeners what this legislation would do and how it's different than what has already been out there.
Yes, I'd be happy to. What's already SB 16 that was passed 3 years ago put a moratorium on these procedures, and in other words, they could not start any new kids on these new minors, I should say, on these transition procedures. But it grandfathered in those that had already started. It also set up and required a systematic study review by the Department of Health and Human Services to do a study as to what is the best treatment for these gender dysphoric kids. And so that's what the bill did in 2023. What my bill does is it makes the moratorium permanent, and it requires any minors that are still on blockers, puberty blockers, or cross-sex hormones, that they have to be off of those by January 28th, 2027. So they have 1 year to taper off these things so we can stop the damage that is happening to these minors. And it basically allows none of this in Utah to go on in the future.
Representative, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Holly and I were talking before we started about, and I don't know whether you can answer this or not, whether and to what extent there is already federal legislation that might overlap with what you're doing here.
Well, that's in process. Of course, I know the Congress passed it, but it's over to the Senate. I do know that typically these things are left to the states, and I'm not sure how that will dovetail in with our state law, other than the fact that this will be in statute in the state of Utah, and I'm not sure what the federal law is proposing. I think it's quite similar to what my bill does, but it is a concern that these kids these minors may end up, if they can't do this in Utah, they may go to neighboring states to have it done, and so we can't do anything obviously about that.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned a study, and that was why there was a moratorium and not a ban. As I understand it, the study was done by the legislative research, maybe, and what they found was that it was generally positive. What is your take on that study?
The study was actually done by the Utah Department of Health and Human Services, and they got the University of Utah's drug regimen review people to do a lot of it. But we've discovered there's been some groups out there, Do No Harm is one of them, SEGM, and some others have done some reviews of that report, and that report was not, it was supposed to be a systematic review. And if you understand what a systematic review is, it's very detailed, very scientific. And this report is a flawed report that the Utah Department did. It's very biased. And there's other reports out there in the, that have been done. The CASH report was a UK report, as well as our own U.S. Department of Health and Human Services did a study too that are systematic reviews. And that's some of the stuff that we're going to be discussing today in our committee meeting. Some of the doctors that are on my presentation will discuss why that report is not one that can be depended on, and that's why we're making the moratorium permanent. And because that report does say that possibly we ought to continue to do this to minors and damaging them. And I honestly, the mental health, gender dysphoria is a real thing. It is something that these minors will experience, but it's a mental health condition. They ought to get all of the help they can get that way. But to damage a perfectly healthy body is wrong. I mean, there's many things that we do that we don't allow minors to do till they're older. They can't drink or smoke till they're older. Can't drive, can't get a tattoo. There's so many things, and this is one thing that we should not be. A minor can't really consent. How can they consent to something they don't understand? So that's the rationale behind what I'm doing with this bill.
May I ask you a question about the amendment? Then is this? It looked to me like the amendment just made it more simple. Is this considered? Are you considering the Ray Ward's amendment a friendly amendment, or is this one where you've got a little bit of heartburn?
Ray Ward's is actually a substitute.
Okay.
And Ray and I talked about that, and I agreed to do it. What the only difference it really does versus what my original bill was is, according to my original bill, they would have to be tapered off and can use it 6 months after the bill goes into effect, which would have put it in November of this year. His just really extends it about 2.5 months longer. And so that substitute bill will be done. And also there's another amendment online that I did that allows doctors to be able to treat these kids as they work off of the hormones, to be able to they don't have to be certified to do transgender treatments. Right now, in order to do that, you have to have a certain certification. But with this changing, they'll be able to go to somebody that's not necessarily certified to do transgender treatments.
To transition off those hormones
To
they might be on.
transition off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Representative Shipp, one last question. Is this bill and the other two that we mentioned at the outset being considered today with the House Health and Human Services Committee?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you expect that to go?
I expect the bill to pass. I don't know about the other two after mine. Mine's the first one on the agenda. Representative Peck has got the other two. And I haven't really looked at those very closely. I think those will pass too, to be honest with you. But I expect mine to pass. We're at a point where these other systematic reviews, the ones that I had mentioned, really point out the fact that there's no evidence that these treatments really help these kids. People claim they do, but there's no systematic evidence that supports that.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Okay.
I expect a lively discussion in committee meeting this afternoon. So that was Representative Rex Shipp, who just joined us, and he has a bill that's up this afternoon. When we come back after our break, we're going to have Equality Utah share their perspective on these proposals as it relates to the transgender community in Utah.
If you've ever experienced running out of hot water before your shower was done, or hard water spots on dishes and fixtures, I've got a deal you might be interested in. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and you probably already know that a tankless water heater and a water softener solve both issues. If you've ever thought about looking into getting a tankless water heater, here's the deal I was talking about. Through the end of February, we're including a free water softener with every new tankless water heater we install. The best part of this deal might be that you never have to worry about being the last one to the shower again, or that you don't have to waste the money keeping 40 to 50 gallons of water hot 24/7. To take advantage of this deal, call Any Hour Services before the end of February. The visit's free and there's no obligation to buy. If you decide to have us install a new tankless water heater, we'll throw in the water softener for free. That's right, a free water softener when you purchase a tankless water heater. Pick up the phone and call Any Hour Services right now for all the details. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
The Management Minute is a service of the MBA program and the Shingo Institute at Utah State University. I'm Professor Scott Hammond. Ever seen an infection spread? I watched a team on the floor of a factory build a complicated technology. Every time they completed a task, they returned to the team leader, reported, and then got a new assignment with careful instructions on how to complete the next task. I asked why they work that way. That's the way we've always done it, but it included words like oversight, tradition, evolving. In fact, the process was not evolving. A team of observers using the principles of the Shingo model in an hour of observation showed the team how to eliminate waste. Fewer steps, less cutting, less walking, more working. Production costs went down by 30%. That's all it took. Before long, the entire plant was infected with ideas of continuous improvement. Learn more about continuous improvement in an MBA from Utah State University. Go to utahstatemba.com or check out the Shingo model at shingo.org. I'm Scott Hammond. Hope to see you in one of our classes.
Valentine's Day is a moment to pause and celebrate the love that fills your life. Duke's Jewelers in Springville believes every love story deserves something timeless, something chosen with intention and given from the heart. This Valentine's season, explore pieces that speak without a single word. Dazzling diamonds that catch the light, rich gold that feels classic and enduring, and colorful gemstones that tell a story all their own. Whether you're marking a first Valentine's together, honoring decades of devotion, or simply wanting to make someone feel cherished, Duke's Jewelers is here to help you find the perfect piece. Duke's Jewelers will guide you with care, offer thoughtful suggestions, and even wrap your gift beautifully so you can enjoy the moment, not stress over it. Visit Duke's Jewelers on Springville Main Street and discover a gift that will be treasured long after February 14th is passed. Because love is worth celebrating in the most meaningful way. Duke's Jewelers. Love elevated.
Hi, Flo here from Progressive. You know, life changes quickly, so it's good to have flexible coverage.
Oh, you mean like adding another vehicle?
Yes, that's something we can do.
Great, because I was thinking about getting a van so we could just keep the kids' softball stuff in the car.
Oh, we don't need to get into specifics. Just saying it's easy to change.
Oh, and Hannah wants to try the tuba.
Again, we don't need the specifics.
Last year, she wanted to be a tap dancer, but that only lasted 2 lessons.
Okay.
But she kept the shoes because they are adorable.
Well, just know that with Progressive, you can easily add another car to your auto insurance because we know life changes.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Save more on the brands pros trust at Lowe's. Right now, get up to 35% off select major appliances and choose from our wide lineup of top brands. Plus, save $100 on a Little Giant 22-foot multi-position ladder, now just $189. Built for strength, flexibility, and job site versatility. Pros, these savings will only be here for a limited time. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 1/30. While supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Join Mike Stevens of Capital Wealth Advisors for Retire Right Radio, Saturdays at 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. That's Retire Right Radio with Mike Stevens, Saturdays at 5 a.m. and 9 p.m.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. I'm here to warn you about telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Some of these scammers may say threatening things like you will be arrested if you don't make payments or provide personal information. Do not fall for these tricks. These calls are not from us. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you for information or money. If you receive a call like this, hang up. Never give the caller your personal information, like your Social Security number or bank account, or send money in any form, cash, gift cards, wire transfers, or prepaid debit cards. Report the call to our law enforcement arm, the Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov. Share this information with your friends and family.
Eye on the Hill 2026. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
Today, lawmakers will hear proposals related to transgender youth. We just spoke with Representative Rex Shipp about his proposal to prohibit certain provisions and what this bill does. And he just spoke with us a minute ago. It's House Bill 174, would prohibit providing cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers to minors after a certain date. And a minor, under the definition of this code, is a person under the age of 18.
And just as a reminder, we did have a moratorium, which is basically a pause on giving these hormones to minors, and this would be an outright ban. It would take effect basically at the end of this calendar year, because there does need to be some time for anybody who's on those blockers or other hormones to transition off. You can't just go cold turkey. And so this bill would take it again from a pause to an outright ban. So we have with us today Marina Lowe, Policy Director with Equality Utah, for maybe a different perspective. What's your stance, Marina? Thanks for joining us, first of all.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I'm happy to be here. You know, we have concerns about this bill, of course, but primarily for two reasons. The first is that, you know, I don't believe that there is much of a difference, at least legally speaking, between a moratorium with no end date and a ban. So I think practically speaking and also legally speaking, this isn't really needed. It's unnecessary. But I think more substantively, I think there is really a concern with this aspect of interrupting care for people who are currently receiving medication from their physicians and having the legislature basically step in and interrupt that care while it is ongoing. You know, I think one of the things that was most beneficial about the law that was passed, the moratorium initially by then Senator Kennedy, is that it acknowledged that there were patients currently receiving care, and the legislature agreed not to step into that relationship. You know, some people may have strong feelings about the ability for minors to receive gender-affirming care, but if you look at the concept more globally from a further step back and think about the precedent that sets for the legislature to step into the patient-doctor relationship and direct when people can receive care or not and what sorts of medications they can receive, that's troubling.
So the bill does seem to say a couple of things, and maybe I'm not reading it right, but first of all, that is a healthcare provider may not provide transgender treatment to a person who is not diagnosed with a gender dysphoria before January 28th, 2023. So it seems to take into account things that have happened since then. And then it has a start date of January 28, 2027, which I thought were put in to maybe address some of the concerns that you just mentioned. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
No, I think you're right. There was a substitute that was adopted just yesterday, I believe, proposed by Representative Ward, which I think does try to honor that agreement that the state essentially made with these minor patients by giving them time to sort of complete their treatment. And so we do appreciate that. I think it's an improvement over the bill as it was originally introduced by Representative Shipp.
Can you talk to our listeners and to us as well about how this impacts the transgender community here in Utah?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad you raised that point. You know, I think transgender people in Utah, this will be the fifth straight year in a row that we have seen an onslaught of legislation coming from Capitol Hill directed at this very small, somewhat vulnerable population. And so I think there is really a sense of exhaustion, of fear, frustration from this community. And, you know, this bill is not the only bill that's being heard on transgender issues. In fact, today there are two other bills on the same committee to discuss transgender healthcare issues. But those are even not the only bills dealing with transgender issues. I know of quite a few other bills that are making their way through the legislature right now. And so I think, it becomes very difficult when a community feels that they're constantly targeted by their state leaders when there is no recourse in the courts, in the halls of justice, on Capitol Hill. It really, I think makes the community feel very, very scared and without many options.
Can you tell our listeners, Marina, about why this procedure should and could go forward before a person reaches the age of 18? Is there something that's lost if we wait until a person's 18 to start this process?
Well, I'm not a physician, so it's hard for me to speak specifically about medical issues. And I think there's been a lot of sort of back and forth on this question about whether it makes sense to provide this type of medical care to minors. And I think it's complicated, and the science is not entirely straightforward or clear or decisive at this point. I think there's a lot of learning that's continuing to happen. I think it becomes a little bit easier to make that point when you talk about adults wanting to access care and wanting to live their lives as transgender individuals. And, another bill that will be heard this afternoon, Representative Peck is running a bill to ban public funding for adults to receive gender-affirming care. That becomes a much more complicated issue. So, I think there are outstanding questions. To get back to your original prompt about whether minors should be able to begin this treatment before 18. But regardless of where you stand on that issue, I think there are unsettling concerns when the legislature is stepping into that patient-doctor relationship that really, these decisions about our own health care should be made free from governmental interference. It should be between a provider, a patient's parents, if that patient is a minor.
I'm wondering if you could speak to the bill that you just mentioned. This is Representative Peck's bill. It's HB 193, but prohibiting the use of public funds, and that includes everybody, including adults. What would that look like in practice?
I think that the primary ways in which we would see impact would be on Medicaid, the ability for individuals who are on Medicaid to use those funds for these types of procedures, and also any state-funded insurance plan. So it could have quite a wide reach. And I think what's really important about that bill is this is sort of the first time that the state would be stepping into telling adult patients what sort of medication they can and cannot receive. It would, again, implicate a lot of those questions we've talked about already about interrupting care. There are obviously ethical concerns with taking somebody off of their medication, which might be the case if you happen to be on Medicaid or a state-funded employer insurance plan. The legislature has long talked about concerns with regard to minors accessing gender-affirming care. This is, I think, quite notable in that it would be reaching into adult decisions as well.
Representative Shipp indicated that this bill and other somewhat related bills are being heard by the House Health and Human Services Committee today, I think. Do you expect that you'll have that someone will be there in opposition to these?
Oh, I think so, yes. These sorts of bills always generate a lot of controversy. To get back to Holly's point, they stoke a lot of fear and concern within the community. These are, in large part, I think, oftentimes culture war bills. They aren't about solving clean air or water issues or affordable housing or addressing homeless issues, health care, all the things that really matter to Utahns. These are about scoring points and being able to speak to constituents that are loud and want to hear about culture war issues.
Marina, we only have about a minute left, but I wanted to ask, are these types of bills, did they bump up against any federally protected statuses? I mean, I know that the whole federal government is another discussion, but aren't there some protections already built into the law?
There's another bill. We haven't had a chance to even discuss HB 183 being run by Representative Trevor Lee, which I think really implicates some conflicts with federal law. On Representative Peck's bill in particular, there are certainly legal issues at play. That is a much less straightforward legal issue than targeting minor care. There's litigation ongoing on this topic because a number of states have already passed similar legislation. And so I think the state would be wading into less clear legal waters by passing this sort of bill.
Thank you so much for joining us. That was Marina Lowe with Equality Utah. And we're going to continue this discussion. We'll have an opportunity, I'm sure, to talk with other lawmakers and other interested parties as the Utah legislative session keeps going.
Yeah, we may have more updates on this when we come back.
We're only on day 8, by the way.
Exactly, yeah. So another thing we were talking about, a debate on Capitol Hill. Should school board members be partisan or nonpartisan? That's a debate that's taking place on Capitol Hill. And there are a couple different proposals, which we will break down after this break.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story, Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall will deliver her 2026 State of the City address tonight at 7. The This is the 7th time she's given the address. In a related story, we're also hearing from Mayor Mendenhall for the first time about what she and her family went through after a man pled guilty to stalking her.
We're now hearing what Mayor Aaron Mendenhall told a judge when Jason Guy Rogers was sentenced for stalking earlier this month. Mayor Mendenhall emotionally recounted her and her family's experience staying in a hotel over last Mother's Day weekend after police told her Rogers was threatening to kill her. She also told the court what it felt like when police say Rogers showed up to her office.
Again, I called my husband. There was panic between us. My staff were afraid.
Mayor Mendenhall went on to say how this has all had a major impact on her and her family.
The changes in our family lifestyle are lasting, as are the emotional and psychological effects. Nightmares, startle scare, anxiety, and more.
The judge sentenced Rogers to 60 days in jail and ordered him to never contact or go near the mayor or her family ever again. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Your money at this moment, the Dow down 363 points to 49,049. Coming up, looks like we got the crash out of the way, but still have delays to tell you about in a few spots on the freeways. We'll check traffic and weather together next. KSL News Time, 9:31.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Are you looking to upgrade your home this year? Advanced Window Products is your local window and door manufacturer that sells direct to the public.
That's right, celebrating 40 years serving Utah since 1986. And right now, it's the New Year, New Window Sale. Get $2,500 off when you buy 10 windows or more.
Our windows are made right here in Salt Lake City. Sales and installation are all in-house, meaning no middleman markups. You get the most affordable, high-quality custom windows in the state.
We build it, we install it, and we guarantee it for life.
Every window comes with a lifetime warranty, labor, glass, and parts included, serviced by our local team, and the warranty is transferable to the next homeowner.
Financing is available too. Save now, pay later, with payments as low as $150 a month.
Buy local and support the local economy. Don't wait. Buy 10 windows or more and get $2,500 off. Beat the rush and call today.
Call us at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit us at advancedwindows.com.
It's not too late. If you got government health insurance again, especially here in Utah, this matters because a lot of families are paying more and getting less. Everyone focuses on the monthly premium, and yes, at My Policy Quote, I can help there. In fact, many of my Utah families are seeing 47% savings and even more on gold level plans. But the bigger issue shows up when you actually need care. The moment that university or blue insurance card hits the counter, prices jump, and with family deductibles now climbing to $20,000, all of that bill lands right back on you. My name is Mike. At My Policy Quote, I help individuals and families and businesses move into private insurance based on health, not income, so you're not overpaying for things you'll never use. That means lower costs, access to national PPO networks, and a plan chosen and managed by you, not the government. If you pay your own health insurance, you're on COBRA, uninsured, or your employer plan is just too much, even self-employed or small businesses, call me, Mike, today. 385-367-6779. Again, that's 385-367-6779. Or visit mypolicyquote.com. That's mypolicyquote.com to get started now.
Jane Dawson did something smart. She saved hundreds on auto insurance switching to Progressive. With the money she saved, she got herself a pricey bird feeder with an ultra-high-def camera. Should Jane have just bought a regular bird feeder? Yes. Is it hard for her to admire nature when the camera doubles as the bird's potty? Also, yes. But it's Jane's savings, and if she wants to spend her time watching the digestive habits of the white-breasted nuthatch, we say you go, girl. Switch and see if you could save with Progressive and treat yourself. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Save more on the brands pros trust at Lowe's. Right now, get up to 35% off select major appliances and choose from our wide lineup of top brands. Plus, save $100 on a Little Giant 22-foot multi-position ladder, now just $189. Built for strength, flexibility, and job site versatility. Pros, these savings will only be here for a limited time. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 1/30 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Supercharge your savings at uccu.com. Let's check in with Cormac Bone.
Your biggest issues down in Utah County and Provo. We got heavy northbound I-15 delays. This is after a crash was cleared off the road. They were blocking all but one lane. They are now just in the right shoulder, right at the end of the on-ramp to northbound I-15 from University Avenue. But otherwise, I-15 looking really good all the way up into Salt Lake from Provo. You've also got no delays on I-215, no matter where you drive across the Salt Lake Valley, and normal delays eastbound on I-80 from Kimball Junction to Highway 40. Use Superior Water and Air for all your HVAC and water treatment needs. Call 974-9090 or visit superiorwaterandair.com. Superior Water and Air, we got this. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather today, partly cloudy with some sun coming in later. Highs will be in the upper 40s. Rest of the week similar, although a slight chance of moisture tomorrow in some places. Right now, it's fair skies and 30 degrees in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Eye on the Hill 2026. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
You know, Holly, when I ran for election as Attorney General and for District Attorney, people would ask me a lot, why are those particular offices partisan?
Yeah.
And isn't there some reason why they shouldn't be? And I always thought, yes, they should be nonpartisan, but they are. School board members have had an interesting history in terms of whether or not and to what extent they are partisan and nonpartisan.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is there are dueling bills on the Hill, but we're going to talk with lawmakers on individual bills. But I wanted to give you just a little bit of background on the state school board. So the state school board historically had been nonpartisan, meaning you did not put your party affiliation on your ballot or anything like that. In 2016, there was a bill that passed that made state school board races partisan. Then there was a lawsuit. Then it went up to the Utah Supreme Court, and the Utah Supreme Court in 2019 ruled that partisan elections for state school board were actually constitutional. So the 2020 election cycle was the first election cycle where state school board members ran on a partisan basis. So we have 15 members of the state school board. Their districts are roughly double the size of a state senate district because there's only 29 state senators. Right. So really big. So right now we have, I think he might be the newest member of the House of Representatives, and it's Representative John Arthur. He's an experienced teacher, former Utah Teacher of the Year, finalist for National Teacher of the Year, and he is running a bill to make these elections go back to nonpartisan. And he's joining us right now. Thanks for joining us, Representative Arthur.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm wondering if you could just talk to us about this bill and wanting to take state school board elections back to nonpartisan.
Absolutely. So in addition to being a legislator, I am an elementary school teacher. And I've been following the state school board since about 2018. I served on a couple of committees that were working with the board members at the time. So I got to see pretty intimately the switch from a nonpartisan elected board to a partisan elected board. And the switch has not been positive for the effectiveness, the productivity of the board, as well as its ability to deliver on the work that it needs to deliver on for our students, developing standards, teacher credentialing, all these pieces that are critical for our education system have become less effective because of partisan elections. And frankly, the public is just sick of politics being in public education, and it's time to get it out. And that's why I'm running this bill.
Representative Arthur, can you tell us how how being partisan has not been positive? I mean, I don't necessarily need specific examples, but what about it has made the school board makeup less effective?
Well, I'll give you a couple of examples. Number one, there's the partisan nature of electing people through a primary process and aligning with a party platform, right? So partisan elections gave us Natalie Klein, the first state school board member ever to be censured by the legislature. It gave us folks who are not education experts, people who don't come from an education background, but people who have political ideologies that are related to education. And when we do that, it leads to standards and policies and administrative rules that don't actually improve life within the classroom because they're coming from people who don't understand life within the classroom. Another example is just it's made it less productive and effective. State school board races or state school board meetings used to take place in just one day. The committees would meet in the morning, the full board would meet in the afternoon. Now the state school board meets for 2 days, a full day altogether, full board on Thursday, and then on Friday, committee meetings in the morning, and then more full board meetings in the afternoon. And the problem with that is, one, it's taken them more time to get through essentially the same amount of work. Two, it is costing the taxpayers more because the people, the staff who make the Office of Education here in the state of Utah work are hourly. They get paid. So from the superintendent and the deputies on down, that is more people logging more hours, costing taxpayers more money to get less quality work out of our board. Our board has gone from being a governing board to a board that believes it has to work on everything instead of trusting the expertise of the staff and educators who have traditionally helped run our education system.
So can I ask you about chatter on the Hill about this bill? What are you hearing?
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting. The chatter on the Hill is people really support it. The people here on the Hill are just like everyday Utahns, and everyday Utahns want politics out of public education. There's a study that's been done by Envision Utah. I don't know if they've released it yet, but when you talk to Utahns, the number one concern that they have when it comes to public education is getting politics out of it. And the interesting thing about the chatter around this bill is that this bill stands in stark contrast to another bill that's being run, I believe, by Representative Kyle, that would make local school board races partisan. So it goes in the opposite direction and at a closer level to our schools and our districts. It would make our local school board races partisan. So bringing in that political lens into our elections of the people who run our local school districts. So when people are talking about my bill, they're often talking about it like it's sweet medicine, pushing back against this idea. I think the majority of people are against, but it'll depend on how the leadership feels about it.
Yeah, we're actually going to talk to Representative Kyle after we are done with our conversation with you. But I think that's interesting too, because it feels like it's competing here. What do you think would be best for, I guess, kids in the classroom? Is it do these elections really impact, I guess, directly in the classroom?
Oh, absolutely. If we're talking about just the state school board races, as a classroom teacher, I teach sixth grade. I look at my sixth grade standards, and that tells me exactly what I need to teach within an academic year in my classroom, from math, language arts, social studies, all the way to physical education, media literacy. All these pieces come from our state school board. The state school board tells everybody what they have to teach, and then local school districts get to decide how they're going to teach it. They get to decide what curriculum they're going to use, practices, but the state school board tells you the what, and it brings along with it the oversight. Our state school board is constitutionally empowered to run and govern our public education system. And in order for our kids to have the level of public education that is worthy of them, to create a system that is worthy of our children, we need our top education minds running that system. We need, 15 of the best when it comes to public education, making the choices that are going to create the conditions for our kids to thrive. And right now, we're using a political process and political parties to pick the people who are going there. And oftentimes, that's just the people who have the loudest sound bites and the people who have the most polarized positions rather than the ones who have the best policies. And all I want to do is get us back to a place where the people who are making the critical decisions for our education system know what they're talking about because they live it. They've dedicated their professional lives to educating and uplifting children. That's who we need on our state school board.
Thank you so much for joining us. That was Representative John Arthur on his bill to return the State Board of Education elections to nonpartisan. The bill is numbered, but it hasn't been assigned to a committee yet, so we're going to keep an eye on that. When we come back, we're going to talk about a bill that he mentioned with Representative Kyle, who would take these partisan elections down to the local school board level, and we'll talk to him about that.
At Uline, they know going the extra mile takes hard work. For companies pushing to go further, Uline will go the distance with you. 24/7, they answer the phone to get you the shipping and industrial supplies you need. Business can move fast. Unexpected large orders, adverse weather, new safety guidelines, and changing economic trends. Uline works hard keeping 41,000 items ready to ship, minimizing detours on your way to the extra mile. Visit uline.com.
More than 50 million Americans suffer from a form of mental illness.
And Utah isn't immune, with nearly 1 in 3 people dealing with anxiety, depression, or another form of mental illness.
But there's hope. We can all take action to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe.
That's why KSL has teamed with the Huntsman Mental Health Foundation to bring you hope and help you thrive.
It's Healthy Mind Matters.
Find out more at healthymindmatters.com.
We just want to have enough money for retirement.
And travel to visit our grandchildren.
I understand. That's why at Fisher Investments, we start by getting to know each other, so I can learn about your family, lifestyle, goals and needs, allowing us to tailor your portfolio.
What about commission-based products?
We don't sell those. We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in your best interest.
So how do your management fees work?
We have a simple management fee based on the value of your portfolio, so we do better when you do better.
We appreciate that kind of transparency.
We also check in with you regularly to keep you up to date on the markets and your portfolio.
Well, what other services do you offer?
As a client, you have access to resources on investing, financial planning, estate planning, Social Security, Medicare, and more.
Wow, sounds like Fisher Investments has everything we need.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Does it feel like someone's stabbing a knife into your heel? Or does your lower back give you problems as the day goes on? The Good Feet store wants to help you, like we helped Ann.
Every time I stood up, pain just shot up my legs. Fortunately, I found the Good Feet store. I went to them after my doctor diagnosed me with plantar fasciitis. And now, thanks to the Good Feet store, I'm 100%.
Wouldn't it be nice to get back to doing what you love, like Patrick did?
I was in constant pain. Somehow my fiance and I found our way into the Good Feet store. Put my foot on the arch support system. I put them in my shoes, my back, my knees, my ankles. Thank you. Thank you, everybody at the Good Feet store. You gave me my active life back.
Learn more or schedule an appointment at goodfeet.com and come in and get your free personalized fitting at the Good Feet store. We have locations in Farmington, Riverton, and Sandy.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Ready for your next vehicle? At Performance Automotive in Bountiful, your new Ford, Toyota, or Honda is here. Built for Utah communities, canyon weekends, and everything in between. Choose capability with Ford, long-lasting reliability with Toyota, or smooth efficiency with Honda. Backed by friendly experts and financing options that fit your budget. Visit Performance Ford, Performance Toyota, and Performance Honda for your test drive. Browse inventory, check pricing, and schedule your visit at performancebountiful.com. Performance Automotive in Bountiful, driven to be the best.
My name is Ariel. When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without my high school diploma. My entire life changed when I took a chance and got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges.
Ariel, your success proves that what I'm doing as a teacher has real meaning.
It was an honor helping you achieve your greatness. Now you're helping others achieve theirs. It inspires me.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Find free and supportive adult education centers near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hi, Grandma. Can Nina come over for dinner?
Sure. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma!
If anyone ever does, I want you to say, no, I have too much respect for my family and I don't want to get in trouble.
I promise, Grandma.
They really do hear you. For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Eye on the Hill 2026. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
You know, every year as we get closer and closer to elections, there's so much talk about focusing more and more on local elections, municipal, county, city, and school board. And we talk about those as some of them being nonpartisan. I know our mayoral races are generally nonpartisan.
Yep.
We just spoke with Representative Arthur, who is proposing that our current state school board, which is made up of after a partisan election, be changed to nonpartisan. Now we're having a bill, that would make local school boards, like for Granite School District or Alpine School District, become a partisan race.
Right. And we, again, to just set it up, so the 2016 legislative session, they passed a bill that said the state school board will go from nonpartisan to partisan, but didn't touch the local. So what this bill would do doesn't touch the state school board, but would make those local boards partisan, like you mentioned. So we have on the line with us Representative Jason Kyle. Thanks for joining us, Representative.
Hey, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
I'm wondering if you can talk to us about why this bill to make local school board elections partisan.
Yeah, so I kind of came up with this idea a little bit organically through my experiences. Now, actually, Greg lives in my district. You live up in the Ogden Valley, correct?
That's right. That's right.
All right. So, what do you think is the number one issue that I get most of my constituents reach out to me about?
Growth, maybe, or water.
Good guesses. Those are definitely there. But the number one issue that I hear about more than anything is property taxes.
Oh yeah, of course, yes.
Property taxes is by far, probably 70% of my constituents outreach is based around property taxes. And who is responsible for over 50% of the property taxes?
Yeah, the school board, the schools.
The local school board, right? So I was talking to one of the school board district candidates during the last election, and I was talking to them, and she was a wonderful person, had experience in education, but when I started talking to this person about property taxes, this person had no clue, absolutely no clue at all, and didn't know how they worked, didn't know how they functioned. And that was a big portion of being on the school board is balancing that. And so I started talking to other people. I talked to members of other people of the school board, and there were actually only a few that actually knew what was going on with the property taxes. And so I wanted to figure out a way that we could get candidates that had more diverse viewpoints and more experience that also outside of education. I thought that was important, and I was just looking for ways to get more scrutiny and more participation on these elections. When I ask people, okay, they come to me as a state legislator for local problems, and I say, well, do you know who your local school board member is? And most of the time they say no. And so I figured this was a way that would increase participation, which studies show that when partisan elections have a 10% more participation in, it would also increase accountability and transparency. So I thought this was a good way to do that.
So, Representative Kyle, I'm wondering how making it a partisan election, I understand what you said about getting people with broader backgrounds, but how would a partisan election ensure that they understand the budgeting process?
Yeah, well, I think it would just be, more people would be attracted to it. There was more education around it. So when I go through an election, in the legislature, we have teachers, but we also have, firefighters, policemen, law enforcement. We have engineers, business people, attorneys. It seems to attract a wide variety of people that are involved. And I feel like this, just through the partisan process, it puts studies show that it increases participation, but also going through the partisan process, it gets more people involved. People, they can become delegates. They start to talk to people through the caucus and convention system. And then also when the parties get involved, they start to participate in those races. They start to recruit candidates. They start to put resources into it. Right now, pretty much there's very little resources that go into the local school board races. And it's very hard to actually get a message out for these candidates as well because of that. So I feel like the increased scrutiny and then the more resources on it will help get the word out.
And Representative Kyle, can you just tell our listeners a little bit about the importance of these school board races, or not the races, but the school boards themselves, especially on the local level, what they do and how they affect our daily lives?
Yeah, so they for one, they are responsible for over 50% of most people's property taxes. That's a very important piece of what they do, is they manage that fiscal portion. But then also they help set policy, local policy, and that trickles down into the schools. They are responsible for, they're the boss of your school district's superintendent and the policies that trickle down and into your schools. So it's very, very important.
I'm wondering what you have heard on the Hill about support or opposition to this proposal.
It's I haven't really done a poll yet, right, amongst a few of my colleagues. Those that I have mentioned to seem to appreciate. They think it's very important. Some of my Republican colleagues like it. One of them mentioned to me about how the Democrats are always bragging about how they get their people elected to these nonpartisan races, and honestly, a lot of them are very partisan right now. You just don't know it, right? So if you go onto social media and you see some of the Democrat campaign people, they're out there bragging about how they got their people elected to school boards or local municipalities, and honestly, I think that's because they have more luck with those, because the Republican Party doesn't really play in those games, and a lot of places it's very difficult to get elected with a D next to your name.
Last question, just briefly, Representative Kyle, where does your bill sit right now?
Right now, I believe it's sitting in rules. So it's the beginning of the session. I've been focusing on a few other bills, but I hope to get a hearing. And a lot of times when it goes throughout the process, it'll get better. A lot when you start to get ideas from your colleagues and from the other chamber, things they tend to work out. And so I'm hoping once it gets out, I can, if there are ideas to make it improve, I hope I can get those ideas from my colleagues.
All right. Thanks for joining us this morning.
It's my representative, Jason Kyle.
You probably already knew that.
He makes an interesting point. And when we talk about municipal elections,
nonpartisan.
Yeah, you think of them, they're nonpartisan, but we all know, don't we, what political affiliation our candidates have typically. And I'm just thinking about Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County. When we deal with those races, we sort of know who's the Republican and who's the Democrat.
I understand also the argument that there's a place for partisanship, and I'm not sure that the school boards are that place. So we have texters this morning that were pretty strongly opinionated that they think the races from top to bottom should be nonpartisan.
Right. I that's how I started the conversation, was
right.
Advocating in my own world, just thinking about why certain races are partisan or not. School board, I guess it gives voters some idea in terms of a candidate's ideology, but it's probably not necessarily relevant to what they're doing on the school board in some respects. I guess I'm talking in circles here.
No, I mean, it's an interesting conversation.
When we come back, we expect to hear from lawmakers about a bipartisan legislation designed to help close unsolved violent crimes. We may be going to a press conference in that respect when we come back right after this.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour. Utah lawmakers are looking to make more changes to our elections laws this legislative session. One of the bills, which is more than 150 pages long, a key provision is looking to make the names of Utah's registered voters public. It's also looking to require the lieutenant governor to lay out what to do when they have a conflict of interest when overseeing elections. The Deseret News reports that could include elections the lieutenant governor is running in. The bill is still awaiting its first debate and vote on Capitol Hill. A home in North Logan has a gaping hole in front of it after a car drove into it last night. The car veered off the road and a family was in the home, but no one was hurt. Investigators are looking into how it happened. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. More than 6,000 people are believed to have been killed in the anti-government protests in Iran. Those numbers come from the U.S.-based Human Rights Activists News Agency.
One of our colleagues has been speaking to people inside Iran, one saying it was like a nightmare. Every 15 to 16 feet there was a body on the street. We're hearing this pattern being repeated and repeated as the scale of what took place there is even now still only becoming apparent.
ABC's Ian Pannell reports Iran's leaders continue to threaten the U.S. if the U.S. military tries to intervene. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 345 points to 49,066. Coming up, we got a tiny chance for a storm in the next 24 hours. KSL weather's next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Ben Kerr was born with Cruzon syndrome. Told he'd face a life of limits.
People do a lot for someone to notice them. Just trying to get someone to pay attention to them. That's not your deal.
Impossible adversity didn't break him.
You will never live an ordinary life.
It fueled him.
So make it extraordinary.
Wrestling defined him. Courage shaped him. And refusing to be normal became his superpower.
We can make excuses, or we can just chew the excuses up and swallow them. And then you end up like Ben.
This is the true story of a young man who didn't just rise above the odds, he crushed them.
A local wrestler could have used his physical limitations to quit sports. Instead, he used it in his advantage.
Stand Out, the Ben Kerr story. In theaters now, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Get tickets at standoutfilm.com. When life says you can't, Ben Kerr proves you can. Standoutfilm.com.
Breaking news, Utah lawmakers are set to introduce bipartisan legislation designed to help close unsolved violent crime cases and deliver justice to victims. One of the sponsors, Tyler Clancy, is speaking now. We're going to break away to that.
To move our clearance rates forward. So I want you to think about this when we talk about clearance rates, when we talk about the certainty of being caught in violent crime. When you think about a gang member who's pulling up to a gas station, who's ready to pull that trigger, what does he or she think in terms of being caught before they squeeze that trigger and change someone's life forever? Do they have the certainty that the minute they pull that trigger, they will be caught and they will be held accountable for what they've done to someone's loved one, to someone's world? I want to share one brief quote from Robert F. Kennedy, former Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who talked about the mindless menace of violence during the 60s. And you'll hear our presenters today talk a little bit about, from different parts of the state and different parts of where we come from, recognizing that violence impacts us all. It's not someone else's problem. Senator Kennedy said, "Whenever we tear at the fabric of life, which another man has painfully woven and clumsily woven for himself and his children, the whole nation is degraded." What one impulsive act of pulling the trigger or one impulsive act of violence can change generations for years to come. The pain of a child never growing up to know his father, only learning about him in photos, we cannot quantify that in a graph, we can't talk about that in a social science perspective. When a mom sets the dinner table, and there's always going to be that empty place where her beautiful daughter once sat, we can never show that in a number. We can never show that in a data point. I finally want to leave with you one experience I had not too far from here, right on the other side of the Capitol. And it was last year at the Utah Homicide Survivors event. And if you haven't been, I encourage you to go. It's a beautiful event. But it's survivors of victims of homicide, family members, loved ones, parents, wives, husbands, who their loved one has been stolen from them. And it's a beautiful memorial, and you can see pictures of their loved one with a name and a quote, something that brought them. And I remember being there to pay my respects, and there was a family that took me in because I know them. And they took me over to the picture of their son who had been killed in his 30s, shot to death right here in our capital city for his sexual orientation. And I'll never forget the feeling that I felt as someone that's disconnected multiple times over as they held that paper. It was all they had left of their son. And they said, "We love him and we miss him every day." We know that common sense resources like this, common sense initiatives that we can bring together, bipartisan initiatives to help solve violent crime, that we can prevent those types of tragedies from happening. So I'm glad to introduce what you'll hear from in order, Representative Verona Malga from West Valley City, Jason Olin, Public Safety Policy Director at the Niskanen Center, Chief Jake Suby of the Ogden Police Department, and we'll close out from Carl Holland with the Statewide Association of Prosecutors. Thank you.
So we're listening to a live press conference right now about some legislation that's being introduced by Tyler Clancy, Mike McKell, and now we have Representative Verona Malga, who's a Democrat from West Valley City.
And always has been about victims and their families. Too many people are still waiting for answers in cases that have gone cold. That kind of uncertainty is incredibly painful. It doesn't end when the headlines fade. Families live with unanswered questions for years, sometimes decades. I know families who have lost loved ones to violence and are still waiting for answers. That waiting changes everything. It affects how families heal, how they trust the system, and how they feel safe in their own communities. This bill will give law enforcement the tools to prioritize those cases and hopefully bring some long overdue closure for families. I've heard directly from police chiefs and investigators who see this as a meaningful step in the right direction because it's focused and practical, and it keeps the priority where it belongs, solving violent crimes. What I appreciate about this approach is that it's targeted. It's not a blank check, and it's not about expanding surveillance or unrelated enforcement. It's about keeping the work focused and on clearing cases and providing clarity for the families who have been waiting for answers. By passing this bill, we are also taking a step toward our communities and our neighborhoods, making them safer for all Utah families. This work shouldn't be partisan. Public safety, accountability, and justice are shared responsibilities. This isn't about politics, it's about results. It's about making sure our public safety system is focused on solving crimes and bringing answers to the victims and families who need it the most. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Representative Clancy, first I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak about HB 137 and the importance of improving violent crime clearance rates across Utah. I'd also like to thank Representative Malga for her leadership on this important public safety issue, so thank you both. I'm here on behalf of the Niskanen Center, a nonpartisan think tank based in Washington, D.C. Our work in criminal justice policy is grounded in the belief that minimizing crime is necessary to preserve a free and prosperous society, and that policies aimed at crime reduction should be rooted in the best available evidence. The violent crime clearance rate in the United States has fallen consistently since the 1960s. While Utah is one of the safer states in the country, data indicates that many violent crimes in this state still go unsolved. For example, since 2019, the violent crime clearance rate in Utah has hovered right around 53%. A violent crime clearance rate of around 53% means that there are families and friends of victims who are denied the justice that should be theirs by right. It also means that roughly half of the violent crimes that are committed in the state do not lead to any punishment. Even Utah's homicide clearance rate of 72%, which is well above the national average, still leaves more than 1 in 4 murders in the state unsolved. But most importantly, low clearance rates reduce the cost of choosing to commit a violent crime in Utah. The most important variable in crime deterrence is the perceived probability of punishment amongst would-be offenders. Those who believe they'll get caught don't commit crimes. Those who think they'll get away with it, do. Allowing violent crimes to go unsolved sends a signal to criminals that they have a good chance of getting away with it. And the result is more violence. By contrast, solving more crimes sends the opposite message. Commit a violent crime in Utah at your own risk. And the result is safer streets across the entire state. It's important to note that unsolved cases are not a reflection of law enforcement apathy or investigative incompetence. Law enforcement in Utah does everything in its power to bring violent criminals to justice. However, police departments, both urban and rural, are today faced with numerous challenges that have strained capacity across the board, including the ability to investigate and solve violent crimes. Despite these challenges, law enforcement continues to work tirelessly to clear every offense committed in their communities. Historically, crime rates have fluctuated, and it's likely that they will rise again at some point in the future. To ensure that Utah remains one of the safest states in the nation and build on the progress that has already been made, we must ensure that the resources available to law enforcement match the importance and urgency of their work. Evidence suggests that resources are critical in solving cases, including those that would otherwise go unsolved. In particular, the evidence supports investments aimed at hiring, training, and retaining homicide detectives, violent crime investigators, and non-sworn crime analysts, acquiring and upgrading forensic and investigative technology and equipment, and supporting victims, their families, and witnesses. HB 137 is so important because it will create a violent crime clearance rate fund to provide law enforcement agencies in Utah with additional resources to help them improve their ability to solve violent crimes. These resources will go to police departments of all sizes in both urban and rural jurisdictions throughout the state. Finally, the awards are structured in a manner that is going to allow researchers to conduct a robust evaluation of policies and procedures to identify best practices to improve clearance rates that can then hopefully be replicated and scaled throughout the state. Today, when a violent individual victimizes someone in Utah, they have a coin flip's chance of getting away with it. Impunity for violent crime is inconsistent with the safety and security of Utah's citizens. The answer lies in improving law enforcement's ability to identify, apprehend, and prosecute violent criminals, which will require a robust and sustained commitment to ensure that investigations are adequately resourced. Thank you.
This is Ogden Police Chief Jake Suby talking about the bill involving investigating violent crimes and trying to solve some of our unsolved crimes through House Bill 137 from Senator Mike McKell.
In talk in support of House Bill 137, as has been mentioned, Utah is often and rightly so recognized as a very safe state. Violent crime here remains lower than the national average, but that does not mean we can afford to be complacent. Violent crime fluctuates, and history has shown us that when agencies lose ground on investigative capacity, it is very difficult and very expensive to regain it. From a law enforcement perspective, violent crime is fundamentally different from other types of calls for service. These cases are complex, time-intensive, resource-heavy. A single homicide or serious assault can involve hundreds of investigative hours, numerous detectives, forensic testing, evidence and analysis, coordination with prosecution, and long-term witness engagement. Behind every one of these cases is a victim or a family waiting for answers. Closure does not come from a police response alone. It comes from a thorough investigation, accountability, and the confidence that everything possible was done to solve their case. When investigations stall, victims and families are left carrying uncertainty for longer than they should. But unsolved violent crime impacts more than individual victims and families. It affects entire neighborhoods. When violent crime goes unsolved, communities feel less stable, trust erodes, and people begin to question whether justice is even attainable. Solving violent crime is not only about closure for victims, it's about restoring confidence, stabilizing our communities, and reinforcing the rule of law. These investigations cannot be rushed, and they require sustained investment. Doing them right depends on trained personnel, modern technology, and timely forensic processing, and then consistency and follow-up. When any one of these elements is under-resourced, cases stall, and when they stall, justice is often delayed and sometimes never reached. HB 137 acknowledges that reality. It recognizes that solving violent crime is not just about responding in the moment, but about sustained investigative effectiveness over time. The Violent Crime Clearance Rate Fund provides targeted support to help law enforcement enforcement agencies strengthen the investigative side of policing, which is where the real work of accountability happens. This is especially important for agencies with limited operational resources, including small and rural communities. Not every agency has the same access to specialized investigators, forensic tools, and analytical support. This bill helps level the playing field for the victims and communities so that they receive the same commitment in justice, regardless of the size and location of where they live or the agency that serves them. It is importantly, this legislation does not mandate how agencies police, it does not expand enforcement authority, and it doesn't impose penalties. It respects local control while offering practical ways to invest in investigative capacity. Whether that means training detectives, improving forensic turnaround time, supporting witnesses, or upgrading investigative technologies. From my perspective as a police chief, this is a responsible and forward-looking approach. It allows agencies to stay ahead of emerging trends rather than reacting after violent crime has already increased. Most importantly, it reinforces a core principle of public safety. Victims and communities deserve thorough investigations, timely answers, and accountability when violent crime occurs. I support this bill because solving violent crime is one of the most serious responsibilities law enforcement has. And legislation like this helps ensure agencies across Utah have the tools to deliver justice, strengthen community trust, and provide the closure that victims, families, and communities deserve. Thank you.
We should now be hearing from Carl Holland. He's a prosecutor with the Utah Attorney General's Office who's speaking on behalf of the Utah Statewide Association of Prosecutors in favor of the bill supporting Violent Crime Clearance Rate Fund.
Or at least it would be if she was still with us. Because just over 8 years ago today, she was brutally murdered at the side of a vertical mine shaft and her body thrown in that mine shaft. Her life was tragically cut short at 17 years old. And her family had to mourn and celebrate her 18th birthday, not knowing what happened to her, where she was, or whether she was alive. I had the privilege as a prosecuting attorney to play a small role in bringing closure and justice for that family, for that victim. But as you've heard today, unfortunately, far too many families in the state of Utah memorialize the birthdays of loved ones, not knowing what happened to their loved one, how they were hurt, and where their body is. These families have to wait agonizing months or years before ultimately learning what has happened to their family members and wondering whether or not they will ever be able to put those family members to proper rest. Hopefully, today we can also recognize that Utah is committed to making an investment into solving this problem. This bill is an investment into the families of Utah to ensure that our families, our loved ones, can be safe, and that those who predate on those family members, that those who would harm others, will be held accountable and brought to justice. I don't have much that I can add to what these experts have already spoken in their fields of expertise, other than to say that the prosecutors of the state of Utah stand committed with these partners in the community and in the criminal justice arena to ensure that violent criminals in our state are held accountable, that they are brought to justice, and that we can preserve a safe society for our families going forward. Thank you.
I think you can see today that across the spectrum, across the partisan spectrum, across the continuum of the folks who are working in the system, that whenever a case number is assigned to a rape, a robbery, a homicide, or an aggravated assault, that it is not just a number in the state of Utah. That is a human being. That is a human being who deserves expertise and who deserves dogged pursuit of justice, and that is what we are trying to do today with House Bill 137. So if you'll join me, please give a round of applause to these great speakers today. Thank you. And I'm sure a couple of us will be hanging around to answer some questions and give a little bit further insight on each individual's area of expertise. Thank you for joining us today.
We've been listening to a press conference dealing with the Utah Violent Crimes Clearance Fund Rate, a bill sponsored by Representative Tyler Clancy, who just spoke at the beginning and the end. They're taking some questions right now. Holly, this is a issue that's certainly near and dear to me, having been involved in the criminal justice system as long as I have, because as a prosecutor, it was always frustrating to be able to have to tell people, I should say, that we're still working on the case, that we don't have answers yet, that there's other things going on, and that some crimes just continue to go unsolved, and that's incredibly not unfair, but troublesome for the victims.
Sure. I have a couple of questions. So first of all, Representative Clancy is going to join us in about an hour, but I wonder, like, you just get so used to using words that are familiar to your own area of expertise. I don't even know for sure what he's talking about with the clearance rate.
So the clearance rate is this: you have a person calls in. Let's say you have your house was burglarized, and the police create a file. They open a case on that. A clearance means they've charged somebody. Something happened.
Okay.
The crime has been at least pushed on to the prosecution stage. An individual has been charged. Win or lose, it's cleared. You know what I mean? It's off that officer's desk.
Okay.
But if there's no suspect, or there's no charges filed, your house was still burglarized. You still suffered, but there's been no clearance for that. It happens, unfortunately, more in sex crimes, let's admit it, than other crimes, because it's difficult for law enforcement and prosecutors to investigate those cases to the point where they feel comfortable charging them. And we've certainly come a long way with that. But clearance rate means getting it off of an officer's desk, so to speak.
So this bill would appropriate $250,000 for fiscal year 2027, which begins in July, I think. How does putting more money towards this, how does that actually help with the clearance rate?
Yeah, we talk about that all the time when we have these unsolved murders, unsolved crimes. You sort of revisit them. You put some more money into them. You say, okay, let's focus on this again. Let's have a task force. Let's have individuals involved. Let's get some forensic people involved, medical examiners, people that can test DNA, things like that. Let's look at a case that maybe 5 years ago we just couldn't solve, but let's look at what's going on today with technology and
Okay.
new witnesses and new
revisit.
information. Let's revisit that and try to get rid of some of these unsolved crimes.
So it does create a grant program. That's where the money is, but thank you for answering how they could use it. We're actually joined on the line by Dave Colley, who is a podcaster extraordinaire, and people know him, I think, from the Cold podcast. And Dave, thanks for joining us.
Sure, absolutely.
What can you tell us from your perspective as somebody who has looked into, talked about cold cases? What do you think about this bill?
Yeah, it's very interesting listening to them speak about the thought behind the bill. The emotional plea that you heard them make about victim families, that's all true, right? In the work that I've done on the Susan Powell case, the Joyce Yost case, Sheree Warren case, other cases that we've looked at in the Cold podcast, these are victim families who have waited 15 years, 30 years, 40 years, decades, and are still not getting answers about what happened to their loved ones. So that this is identifying a problem. What I find interesting about this bill is kind of the direction that they're going with it, though. I heard some language in there and looking at the text of the bill that almost makes me wonder if they are trying to open the door to using some of this money for, say, AI analysis of crime trends. I think you heard one of the representatives say, this isn't about expanding surveillance. At the same time, they're talking about, in the text of the bill, doing, analysis, including monitoring of what they call temporal and geographic trends, which to me says they're looking at time and place, right? Are there places where crimes are more likely to happen? So it'll be very interesting to see as they move forward if there's any kind of discussion about beyond just DNA forensics and the things that most of us would think about with cold cases. Are they looking at other tools for some of this money?
But don't you think, Dave, just from you having spent as much time as you have with crime victims and families who feel like their cases have gone cold, that whether it's AI or DNA or CSI, that they're going to feel at least some comfort knowing that the cases are being re-examined, or that they're putting other resources, or the state's going to do something to try to get another leg up on trying to solve some of these unsolved crimes?
Greg, I would say yes, but with an asterisk, right? In my experience, and I'm sure you've seen the same on your side doing all of the, the legal work that you've done over the many years, it's very common in a cold case that a witness might come forward with some information, they'll speak to an investigator, and then they never hear from that investigator again. And I think part of that is because a lot of these departments, you have staff turnover, you have different assignments. So an investigator who worked on a case originally may not be the same investigator that's on the case 5 or 10 years later, and they don't stay in touch with some of these victim families or with witnesses. And so, if this money is used by a department, say, to create a dedicated cold case unit, and those folks assigned to that unit are doing a better job of staying in touch with victim families and witnesses, then absolutely, I would think that those families would take some comfort from at least having that line of communication open, which is a really common failure point now.
Yeah. What is the failure point? What are victims' families telling you? Do they feel like they're just being forgotten? And if so, doesn't this seem to be, Dave, a way to remember or re-look at some of these cases?
I mean, it could be, but I'll also point out, Greg, that we do have an existing structure within the Department of Public Safety in the state of Utah for cold case review. Now, that's not something that victim families are part of, right? That is a law enforcement gathering where, an investigator with an agency can come forward to the Bureau of Criminal Identification. They have a working group with experts, and they'll kind of examine some of these cases. The sad fact is we have more unsolved violent crimes in the state of Utah than even that team has the time and capacity to look at. So it really depends department by department right now, whether or not these agencies are equipped to do that kind of reach back in time. And the fact that they are identifying a problem here with rural police agencies specifically, they want to help those smaller departments gear up for violent crime case work is, I think, significant in this bill.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about the rural counties who may not have the resources, who may not have the investigative tools and other things that are financially more available to the bigger departments, Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, West Valley. Do you think that this could be some sort of ray of hope for them?
Yeah, and I think in the state of Utah, we see a lot of cooperation among law enforcement agencies. Weaver County, Davis County, Utah County, Salt Lake County, they all have obviously much larger staffs, much larger budgets than, say, San Pete County or Emery County. And it's, crime doesn't stay within a city or a county boundary. Somebody who is, say, involved in a cold case homicide where they killed somebody and transported their body, they may take them beyond the Wasatch Front. And so making sure that these rural communities have a level playing field, or at least an opportunity to get access to some of these funds if this bill goes through, I think that's a really smart move on the part of the people who drafted this to recognize that we can't have just hey, the majority of violent crime happens in Salt Lake County, let's give all the money to Salt Lake County kind of approach.
Sure. And we've only got a minute left, Dave, but what was your initial response when you heard this? It sounds like you're cautiously optimistic.
It's fair, Greg. I take guarded skepticism into any look at any bill, right? This is the public's money at the end of the day. And what I want to see coming through the process is, what transparency will the public have on where this money gets spent? Because it's great to stand up in a press conference and talk about all the things you're going to do for victims and victim families, but we can't be giving out blank checks.
Thanks. That was Dave Cowley, KSL cold case expert. And thanks for joining us again. When we come back, we're going to go back to where
California.
we should be going.
We're going to talk about TikTok, actually,
That's right.
and Tech Tuesday. So stay with us over the break.
10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour. Next week begins the biggest time of the year for ticket sales at Tuacahn Theater, but they're worried because they've seen a big uptick in scams. Box office manager Kim Blair says the scammers are getting more savvy and even have call centers claiming they're Tuacahn.
Every performance, we have people here who end up with either fake tickets or not valid tickets.
Blair says make sure the site you're on is tuacahn.org. Since Tuacahn is a nonprofit organization, you won't be charged tax. So if you're checking out and there's a tax that shows up, you're not on the right site. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Today's the first day of assigned seats on Southwest flights. For years, Southwest was known for allowing passengers to choose their own seats. The company says it's moving to this new seat policy to get rid of confusion that may happen during boarding. Some passengers are criticizing the new policy since travelers cannot choose their own seats if they buy the cheapest tickets, meaning families that want to sit together may be split apart when the seats are assigned. Starting February 1st, TSA is rolling out a new policy allowing people without a real ID to fly by going through a prior identification screening and paying a $45 fee. The real ID that has that little gold star in the upper right-hand corner of your driver's license, passports, and other documents also work. Your money at this moment, the Dow down 426 points, almost a full percent to 48,986. Coming up, we might see a few raindrops tomorrow. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 10:31.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
If you've ever set New Year's resolutions before, you know how difficult it is to follow through because you have to wait to see the results. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and in honor of your New Year, New You resolutions, Any Hour Services is having our New Year, New System sale. From now until the end of February, Any Hour Services will give you $2,026 off a new furnace and air conditioner. And you don't have to wait to save the money. You get $2,026 off at the time of purchase. The only thing you have to do to qualify for our New Year, New System sale is call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate. When you call, there's no obligation to buy. Just schedule a time to meet that works best for you. Let me say that again. From now until the end of February, when you have Any Hour Services install a new furnace and air conditioner, we'll give you $2,026 off. Call Any Hour Services right now and schedule a free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
If you owe back taxes, listen carefully to rule number 1. Never go up against the IRS alone. They're cracking down, freezing bank accounts, garnishing paychecks, canceling passports. Even your home or business could be at risk. But here's what they don't tell you. The IRS has powerful tax relief programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. That's why smart people call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. Nobody knows these programs like the experts at Optima. Their team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $2 billion in tax debt for people just like you. The IRS is not stopping, so don't wait and don't take them on alone. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima today for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. Did you know that we offer 3 distinct styles of gutter protection? Each one meant to handle a specific leaf problem. You might not even know there are different styles of gutter protection, but there are. And if you pick the wrong one, it could be a huge waste of money. Now, the big gutter guard companies won't tell you this. They try to sell you a one-size-fits-all gutter guard. And it could be completely wrong for the amount and types of trees and leaves you have. Not RGS Exteriors. We understand which kind of leaf problem needs which kind of gutter guard. We'll do an in-depth evaluation to assess the types, locations, and numbers of trees in your yard. Based on that data, we match your home to the right gutter guard. So don't risk wasting money on the wrong gutter protection. For a free evaluation and estimate, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit rgsexteriors.com. That's 801-280-3110 or rgsexteriors.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Supercharge your savings at uccu.com. Here's Cormac Bone.
Roadways looking really good all across the Wasatch Front right now, so it's construction giving us the worst. It's eastbound, well, both directions on Pioneer Crossing at Saratoga Road. Otherwise, spotty and light delays all the way to I-15 on Pioneer Crossing. And in Provo, South University Avenue, both directions, north and southbound, heavy and slow, approaching 920 South. While you're planning your day, plan for comfort too with the Good Feet store. Find the location nearest you at goodfeet.com. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather forecast for today, 48 degrees for the high. Tomorrow, 44 with a small chance for a few scattered rain showers in the valleys and a bit of snow in the mountains. Right now, it is 34 degrees in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Today, a state court in California will hear what may be the first case brought by individuals, school officials, and state attorneys general against major social media companies. The case alleges, this California case, that firms like Meta, TikTok, and YouTube intentionally designed their platforms to be addictive despite knowing the risk that poses to young people. This is what you call a bellwether case, first of its kind.
So we have with us Mike Dubusky, ABC News technology reporter, to help break it down. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, great to be here, guys. And it's a bellwether case, not just because it's the first of its kind to go to trial. It's also kind of meant to inform a group of about 1,500 state-level social media cases that deal with similar questions. They've been kind of grouped together with these three bellwether cases that have been picked out. This case in California is the first to go to trial to basically help inform juries as they make their decisions down the line. That's at the state level. There's also a grouping at the federal level. It could be a very consequential year for social media.
So, Mike, can you tell our listeners what the cause of action is, what it is that the states are trying to get accomplished through these lawsuits?
Sure. So the idea here is that there needs to be some movement to address how these social media platforms treat younger users, right? In this particular California case, it deals with a 19-year-old who, in court documents, is named KGM. And it alleges that she was able to get onto these social media platforms, get access to them at 10 years old, basically circumventing some of the block software restrictions that her mom had put in place on like the family computer and so on and so forth, getting access to these platforms with really no pushback from the companies themselves. And then once she did that, the addictive design baked into platforms like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and Snapchat and others kept her hooked, and that led to compulsive, unhealthy behaviors, things like depression, anxiety, self-harm, and body dysmorphia. The other bellwether cases, there are three of them at the state level that are expected to go to trial after this one, are seen as sort of broadly representative for the larger group here. And evidence shared here, testimony shared at these trials, could be used to sort of inform juries thinking down the line. We are expecting to hear from Mark Zuckerberg at some point over the next 6 weeks or so that we expect this trial to take. That would mark a pretty major move here because none of these trials have really gone forward given some of the protections that are afforded to these social media companies up until very recently.
So what kind of impact could this have potentially on social media companies in the United States? I know even like Europe and Australia, they're a little different.
They are, and specifically with regards to those markets, that's legislation that's being passed at the Australian government level, banning kids under 16 from accessing some popular social media platforms. There's movement in France to do that as well. But here, it seems like we're taking a run at this through litigation, which is a bit different. That could mean that these social media companies would be hit with fines, if they are found to be in violation of the law or found to be be, perpetrating bad behavior. They could also be forced to change some of their behaviors by courts across the country. But it's important to note, guys, that we're at the very early stages of all of this. Different juries can arrive at different conclusions based on the specifics of any given case. Despite the fact that these cases are broadly similar, that can still happen. They can also choose to settle at any given time. Snapchat was named in this lawsuit that's going to trial in California. They chose to settle for undisclosed terms last week. But the general goal here is to create this sort of global settlement or global decision of some kind that, again, helps us better understand exactly how to handle social media as it applies to young people.
Yeah, and you may have answered this question, Mike, but I often think of lawsuits as being involving money, and this one, and these probably do. But there's also, I think, the potential that there will be change as a part of these lawsuits. So there will be stipulations, or there'll be orders in place, or there'll be something so that going forward we don't have to have lawsuits like this anymore. Correct?
Right. Yeah. This could force a change in behavior to the companies. Now, what that change is, a change in policy, more rigorous checks or something like that on things like age verification. All that stuff is left to be sorted out, and there's potential pitfalls in any given solution there because, again, this is just such a kind of new thing that we're reckoning with legally. But yeah, it's absolutely on the table beyond just simply fining them, which I think in the past has not really worked, given how valuable these companies are. Even a $10 million fine is more money than I've ever seen, but it's a slap on the wrist basically to something like Facebook.
Yeah. I want to pivot just a little bit about and talk about TikTok. So America now has majority ownership, at least American companies, over TikTok. And I've seen some stuff on different social media platforms, specifically X, claiming that TikTok is now censoring things like Epstein. Well, they want to talk about the Epstein files. What's going on? What's changed?
Yeah, so late last week, TikTok came under its new American owners, among them Oracle, but also MGX and Silver Lake, some investment firms, American investment firms. Each of those bodies has a 15% ownership stake each, though ByteDance, which was its original Chinese parent company, they do retain a 19.9% ownership stake. Over the weekend, there was an outage at TikTok. This first started cropping up, or at least being reported, on Sunday morning, where people were having trouble uploading videos to the platform. They were finding that their feeds were depersonalized, or they were, just seeing some unusual behavior among TikTok. TikTok blamed this on the winter storm that swept across the country over the weekend, saying that knocked out power to one of its data centers, and that created this sort of cascading set of problems that they were still working to resolve late into Monday evening. But of course, given the timing of all this, that did cause many users on the platform to say, oh, already the Oracles and the Larry Ellisons of the world are starting to meddle in how TikTok works. Now, it's important to note, guys, that, these individual reports that are cropping up on social media are just individual data points, right? And there is reason to, doubt, or at least maybe take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, given that, in the absence of robust data, a lot of people draw a lot of conclusions that can be wrong. Even still, a lot of people kind of frustrated a definitely inauspicious beginning to TikTok's new ownership under American firms.
And do we feel, Mike, that new ownership under American firms solves the problem that TikTok was faced with, that is to divest itself and to have American ownership? I mean, do you think that what has happened has now cured that problem and that can continue to exist as TikTok in the United States?
Well, the real question, guys, at the center of TikTok's ownership, right, had to do with what the Chinese government had access to, right? Americans' data privacy. There was a concern, certainly, that the Chinese government could use TikTok as like a propaganda tool in the United States, getting like pro-China messaging in front of kids' eyeballs. But it seemed like the bigger concern really was that it was a tool that was on a lot of people's phones, and that they could, compel ByteDance to spy on American users by collecting their data. Well, interestingly enough, in just the first few days, there have been some changes to TikTok's terms of service. The big takeaway is that now, unless you opt out, you are sharing more data with TikTok's new American owners than you were before under its old owners, specifically related to location data. It used to just kind of collect generalized location data. It would know what city you were in, but not what street corner you were standing on, for example. Now, unless, again, that you choose not to have it collect this data, it is collecting precise location data on its users. In addition, it can collect information about your interactions with TikTok's artificial intelligence. There are lingering questions about how TikTok's new American owners are going to treat content moderation going forward, whether it will, de-emphasize certain content in favor of other content. Of course, there's a political bent to that as well that people have been speculating about, but so far, no word from the company on exactly what they're thinking there is. But yeah, that is the sort of big concern here, was the data collection piece of this. Well, unless you specifically go in and, choose to have it not collect certain aspects of your data, it's now collecting more.
Wow. Thanks so much. That was Mike Dubusky, ABC News technology
Really
reporter.
informative.
And literally in the last 2 minutes, I just saw an AP Associated Press news alert that says TikTok settles social media addiction lawsuit ahead of landmark trial set to begin in Los Angeles today.
Right, even while we were talking about the
while
very
we were talking,
subject.
they said we're out. When we come back after this break, we are going to talk about a case that I thought was really interesting, where 4 West Jordan children had been reported missing and thought to be overseas. They've been found in Croatia. We're going to talk about that when we come back.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Do you want to walk, play pickleball, and enjoy other fun activities to stay healthy, but you can't because of bad feet? Hi, this is Mike, and the Good Feet store wants to help.
I just had difficulty walking. I tried them on in the store, and my foot felt so much better.
Do you keep buying new shoes and inserts with little or no relief?
I tried all kinds of shoes. It was the arch supports that made the difference from the Good Feet store.
Don't let bad feet, knees, or back problems get in the way of staying healthy and having fun.
Thanks to the Good Feet store, I bowl in 3 nights a week.
Get back to doing what you love. At the Good Feet store, we'll personally fit you at high-quality arch supports to maximize your comfort. Stop in the Good Feet store or book your free fitting at goodfeet.com. We have locations in Farmington, Riverton, and Sandy.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Trying to make sense of the markets? Looking to diversify out of all the craziness? Thinking about tangible assets like precious metals? Listen to The Gold Show with Kenny Michaels right here on KSL at 3 p.m. Sunday afternoons. Stay up to date on retirement trends, how the IRA rollover process works, and why investors are turning to physical gold. Kenny is a national talk show host with decades of experience in the markets. Tune in for Kenny's Insights and The Gold Show this Sunday afternoon at 3.
At CertaPro Painters, we know that a happy place comes in many colors, like ones that inspire a sense of wonder, or a new flavor that makes life just a little bit sweeter, or one to celebrate those moments that lift you to new heights, at home or at work. We'll make your happy place your own. CertaPro Painters. That's painting happy. Each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated. Contractor license and registration information is available at CertaPro.com.
Are you living with dry AMD? If so, you could be on the road to geographic atrophy, or GA, a condition that leads to retinal cell death and permanent vision loss. But with Izervay, you can
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay slows GA progression by targeting a key source of retinal cell death, which may help preserve your vision longer. Izervay, or Avastin Captid Pagel, is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
Amanda, I took my daughter with me to see Frozen at Hale Center Theater, and it was a magical experience. And I say that somewhat jokingly, but it was magical. I watched a woman transform a dress in a second right in front of my own eyes. I got snowed on indoors. Plus, there was all the songs that we both loved.
Yeah, when that ice castle comes out of the floor, I have goosebumps now just thinking about that moment. And the performers, the young girls who sing Elsa and Anna when they're little. I mean, the grown-up ones too, but but all of them were just extraordinary.
The Anna that I saw just had this magical pixie-like charm that was so fun to watch. That just everything she said made me laugh.
Have you seen Frozen yet at Hale Center Theater? It runs till when, Andy?
It goes till Valentine's Day.
So you
if
have time.
Yeah, if you didn't catch it during the holiday season, that's okay. It's an extended run. You have a chance to go now.
And if you went before, maybe you want to take your girlfriend or your nieces. Go back and have this magical experience of Frozen.
You can get tickets online. Find out which day works best for you at hct.org.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 18 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 30, 60, or 90 days from a station contest or event may not be eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com/contests.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources.
Well, there's some hopeful movement in a case involving 4 West Jordan children who have been reported missing overseas. Their father says they have now been found in, of all places, Croatia. Here's a breakdown from KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera and Claire Scott.
The father of 4 West Jordan kids says they were found about a week and a half ago in Croatia, but they still can't leave. Their dad, Kenny Seymour, tells KSL the kids are being held in what Croatia calls a children's home, their version of an orphanage, while authorities review U.S. court documents before releasing them. Seymour says the process has been slow and emotionally overwhelming. For backstory on how this all started, here's KSL News Radio's Claire Scott.
It was just after Thanksgiving that police say Alicia Seymour took off to Europe with her children. According to charging documents, Seymour had recently obtained passports, telling her ex-boyfriend she was concerned about the end of times and had to leave the country. Police say they found evidence of her plans in her apartment, and surveillance footage shows her and the kids entering the airport. They say she later left her ex-husband a voicemail telling him she needed to get the children out because the end of times were coming.
Now Kenny Seymour says being there and seeing the kids, but not being able to take them home has been overwhelming.
Probably twice a day we look at each other and say like, hey, remember that one time that your kids got abducted to Croatia? Like, it's just, you have to remind yourself that this is a reality. Like, this isn't just some Netflix documentary you watched. It happened to us.
Seymour says he's allowed to see the kids once a day, but they can't leave the facility and don't understand why it's taking so long. Their mother was later arrested in Croatia, and Seymour believes that arrest is tied to an Interpol notice connected to felony charges filed back in Utah.
And I suppose in their defense, the Croatian authorities are probably thinking we don't want to make a bad situation worse by just immediately turning them over to dad. And so they're waiting for documentation from U.S. courts that say maybe you should do that.
So, look, this is not a kidnapping situation, but I've done international adoptions, as you know. That's how I got a lot of my kids. And the court process in other countries can be slower than we expect sometimes in the United States. So I feel bad for the dad, right? It's like, oh, great, we found the kids and we can, scoop them up and get home. And that's not what has happened. We do have with us on the line Adam Craig. He's a Utah immigration attorney. First of all, thanks for joining us, Adam.
Not a problem. Happy to be here.
I wonder if you could just talk to us about the process of getting kids back from a country where they're now in an orphanage.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Greg outlined, they can't go through this super quick because potentially there are legal issues that relate to how did the children get there? Were they brought there inappropriately? Was there consent? And all of those issues, and that's exactly why they're in the orphanage, because those issues have to be ferreted out. They have to be determined. And that requires attorneys. It requires compliance with the Hague Convention. The really good news here is both the United States and Croatia are members of the Hague. And so they now have to go through the formal process to return the children. So that's going to require some filings. It's also going to require that they prove that the children were there inappropriately and unlawfully. And then they want to make sure and expedite it as fast as they can to the parent that actually has primary legal custody.
So Adam, I know about the Hague Convention. I wonder if you could break it down just a little bit for our listeners. Why would they have to go through the Hague Convention to get these kids out of the orphanage?
So because we're signatories of what is known as the Hague Convention, which is an agreement between various countries, quite literally the vast majority of the European countries, the United States, and other countries that are, I guess what you'd call more sophisticated, I don't like terming this way, but first world countries belong to a convention known as the Hague, where there are issues and laws that have been created to address child custody, adoption, and then full faith in, kind of what to use it, still one of our terms is full faith and credit to other countries' laws, application of laws, and that is one of those conventions that the United States is a signatory to.
You know, Adam, I practice between states and think, boy, there's a difference between Utah and Idaho and Wyoming. I can't imagine what it's like between countries. Can you tell us when you're dealing with issues like this, and you've dealt with a lot where people are being deported or being sent to other places, trying to get them back, trying to negotiate with authorities there, what that process is like?
Oh, man. There are situations where even though they are a member of the Hague Convention, it is virtually impossible to get their courts to sign off, to get the authority to go in and get the child back, to expedite things, because they just move at such a different pace than we move, and because it's just a different work schedule, different type of lifestyle. And so it is extremely difficult. In their minds, they're doing an expedited process, but in our minds, it's literally taking forever.
Yeah, I would I would second that. You know, I'm looking at a New York Post article, which I don't typically do, but what's interesting to me here is they call her a doomsday mom because, and we heard this from the report we just listened to, that she thought it was the end of times. I'm not sure why she picked Croatia, but there is a fifth American child that she took with them that is not biologically related to her. It's so interesting because that person is going to be stuck. That child is going to be stuck there maybe a lot longer. And the ex-husband, he's the dad of 3 of the 4 kids. There's 2 ex-husbands involved in this. So to add complications to it, it sounds like there is even a 5th child who has not been publicly identified. And I don't even know how that child got into the country.
Good heavens. No, and that's exactly, it just blows the mind and it boggles the mind, because theoretically they weren't even supposed to let that child in, because typically when we have our clients who want to travel and there's issues that related to custody and or parentage, we will produce notarized letters authorizing travel with family members that are not members of family members or other persons that they have specifically authorized and given authority to speak for their child. So in that circumstance, how she literally was able to get on a plane and move forward with this child into different countries, it is a little bit mind-boggling. That is mind-boggling.
And
especially European countries.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Dad's got to get a representation there. Adam, what's it like, the cooperation, maybe collaboration, when you're dealing with attorneys from other countries?
Right, and that's the issue, is you've got to find somebody that specializes in these types of issues, which is extremely difficult because you're talking about a scenario that very rarely happens. So you've got to get somebody that's an expert in the Hague Convention, but that is an expert specifically related to children that are primary residents or habitual residents of a different country. And in this circumstance, you're going to want somebody that is a specialist in habitual residents of the United States, who with children that have been improperly removed from the United States, to essentially get them back to the United States into the custody of the dad. And then throwing that together and trying to find an attorney in Croatia that can handle that and understands that process is not as easy as it may sound. And that is the difficult part, is they've got to find specialists in this area.
Yeah,
probably not just a directory for the Croatian.
And you got to find translators, official court-approved translators.
Right.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's not just your random dude on the street that says, "Hey, I speak English."
Right,
They've got to be. They've got to be officially approved and all of that. Thanks for joining us, Adam. That was super interesting on a case that's really interesting and actually a lot more complicated than it sounded on the surface.
Yeah, and a sad case, a tragic case. So imagine being dad. He's there. His kids are in a facility. They call it a children's home, but it's similar to an orphanage. He can visit them.
But only once a day.
Hopefully he
That's
can hug
wild.
them or touch them, but he can't take them. But it's got to give the kids some solace, and Dad too, that they're there, that there's at least some ray of light at the end of the tunnel, that he's probably going to be able to take them home eventually.
So there are 4, and their ages are 11, 8, 7, and then those are his biological children. And then the 4th child, who she had with her second husband, is only 3 years old. Actually, I don't know if it was a husband or not, but that she had with another father,
right,
is only 3. And the 11-year-old, you can kind of talk about, it's like, hey, I'm here. I'm not going to leave without you. It's a little harder to explain those kinds of things to kids, to babies.
You hope that the
3 years old.
kids are together, that with the group,
I hope
so that you're at least with your siblings.
Yeah. Look, today marks the 81st anniversary since Auschwitz was liberated by the Russian army in 1945. We're going to talk about the importance of this day and the work that still needs to be done with a member of Utah's Jewish community when we come back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Claire Scott. KSL's top story this hour. Utah lawmakers are looking to make some big changes to our election laws.
One of the biggest bills we're keeping an eye on is one just published from Senator Mike McKell, which is more than 150 pages long. It's seeking to make the names of Utah's registered voters public and require the lieutenant governor, Utah's chief elections officer, to lay out what to do when they have an apparent conflict of interest in an election, including who can step in their place. The Deseret News reports that provision came in response to complaints about the lieutenant governor overseeing elections they're running in themselves. The bill also hits on verifying voters' identities and citizenship, as well as signature gathering. It's still awaiting its first debate and vote on Capitol Hill. If passed, it would not go into effect until after this year's midterm elections. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
And we do have breaking news. TikTok has settled its social media addiction lawsuit hours before the trial was supposed to start. The plaintiffs claim the app's algorithm was purposely created to attract young users. They asked for monetary damages and a redesign of the platform to prevent excessive use. The exact terms of the settlement have not yet been released. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 496 points. The S&P is up 27 points. And coming up, clouds roll in. KSL weather is next. KSL News time 11:01.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
This year's tax changes. Better not get caught snoozing. Miss one deduction, lose thousands. Not amusing.
Big tax changes can mean bigger refunds at Jackson Hewitt. And right now, get $100 just to try us.
Don't worry, tax filers. If money is tight, get $100 from Jackson Hewitt, so you'll sleep better at night.
Limited time offer for new clients. Participating locations only. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Save more on the brands pros trust at Lowe's. Right now, get up to 35% off select major appliances and choose from our wide lineup of top brands. Plus, save $100 on a Little Giant 22-foot multi-position ladder. Now just $189. Built for strength, flexibility, and job site versatility. Pros, these savings will only be here for a limited time. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 1/30. While supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for more details.
At CertaPro Painters, we know that a happy place comes in many colors, like ones that inspire a sense of wonder, or a new flavor that makes life just a little bit sweeter, or one to celebrate those moments that lift you to new heights, at home or at work. We'll make your happy place your own. CertaPro Painters. That's painting happy. Each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated. Contractor license and registration information is available at CertaPro.com.
When the new year hits, every business could use a little something to stay ahead. A lift, a jump start, an edge, or perhaps a boost. Like the all-new 5-year business boost from Comcast Business. It's the certainty of a price lock for 5 years on qualifying internet bundles. Plus, you'll have the most reliable Wi-Fi with our best equipment, so your whole team can stay connected at a great rate. And to sweeten the deal, ask about a $500 prepaid card when you add 2 lines of mobile. It's the boost your business deserves. So sign up for the 5-year business boost and get a 5-year price lock on ultra-reliable Wi-Fi. Plus, ask about a $500 prepaid card. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Ends 3/22/26. New customers only. 1-year contract required for guaranteed rate. 5-year pricing applies to monthly service charge excluding taxes and fees. Best Wi-Fi based on Open Signal Awards USA Fixed Broadband Experience Report, May 2025.
Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s, brought to you by UCCU. Transfer savings, earn more. UCCU, love where you bank. Here's Michelle Rowe.
Looking good out there. I-15 running smoothly across the Wasatch Front. KSL travel time of about 16 minutes from Draper to downtown. Also, still just a heads up for drivers driving past Deer Creek Reservoir. They do have ongoing construction on US 189. Put your energy into the fight song, not fighting for parking. When you win, you take UTA to the game. Plan your trip at rideuta.com. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
A high of 48 today. Clouds begin to roll in this afternoon, and there's a chance of light rain snow shower tomorrow. Right now it is 36 in Fair. I'm Claire Scott from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Well, today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and it's because it's been 81 years today since Auschwitz was liberated by the Russian army. And I read an article as we were preparing for this this morning, Holly, that you had written a year ago today about your own personal experience.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to visit Auschwitz shortly after I defended my dissertation. I literally defended and then got on a plane and went to Poland, where I did some work with refugees coming across from Ukraine. But I had an opportunity to go to Auschwitz a little bit later in my visit, and it was like, it's very sobering. But one of the things that really caught my attention is they wanted to become efficient at killing people, and they didn't want to wash the clothes after they shot prisoners, and so they made them take the clothes off before they killed them. They separated, separated out pregnant women and children, and they almost all, as they stepped off the trains, the cattle cars, they almost all were just killed upon arrival. It was just horrific. And the fact that you could be surrounded, like it was out in the woods, but that you could be surrounded by people who were still, I would say, turning a blind eye and ear and nose to what was happening. It was really just incredible.
And you did a remarkable job of just describing the breadth of the whole thing and just the expanse of it. It was astonishing.
So I do have to read this before we get to our guests. And this was one of the Russian generals who rolled in there, and he said, "I, who saw people dying every day, was shocked by the Nazis' indescribable hatred toward the inmates who had turned into living skeletons. I read about the Nazis' treatment of Jews in various leaflets, but there was nothing about the Nazis' treatment of women, children, and old men. It was in Auschwitz that I found out about the fate of the Jews."
Wow.
So we have with us on the line Patrice Arent, a former Utah senator and the only Jewish person who's ever served in the Utah Senate. Thanks for joining us on this somber day, Patrice.
Thank you, Holly. I missed the beginning of what you said, but I did catch that you had been at Auschwitz and had seen learned about what had happened there, which is just atrocious.
It is. And, I believe you've been there as well. Is that right?
I've actually been to a different concentration camp. I have not been to Auschwitz. I've certainly read about it and seen pictures and learned about it. And of course, this is the day where we commemorate the 81st anniversary of the liberation.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I think I don't know, sometimes I think we don't learn the lessons of history that we should, but I know that Dwight D. Eisenhower, he was attributed at least this statement of basically saying, record it all, get it on record now, get the films, get the witnesses, because somewhere down the road, some blankety blank will get up and say this never happened.
Well, so many people think it didn't happen, and it has been going on for a long time, particularly among younger people. I can remember as far back as when I was a substitute teacher at Olympus Junior High School, which is a fairly well-educated area, and that was when there was that was probably in the late 70s, and there was a made-for-TV miniseries about the Holocaust that was on TV that week. And so many of the students came up to me and said, well, this didn't really happen, or how did they make a whole miniseries out of something that happened only one day? Wow. And if you look at the numbers, I worked on legislation, which eventually became law, encouraging Holocaust education in our public schools. And it is just amazing to realize how many people don't ever think the Holocaust happened. And you think about that and the lessons we need to learn, not only about what happened then, but about, all hate crimes. It is really, it's just so important that people learn about the past.
Do you think it's a function of disbelief, or do you think it's a function of denial that people would look back on something that you visited a concentration camp. Holly's visited Auschwitz. I mean, the evidence is so overwhelming. What would it be, and I know this is an unfair question, Patrice, that would cause people to sort of look back and say, well, did that really happen?
Well, I think some of them never even heard of it. I mean, that's the start, is that some people have never been taught the history. And some people think this just could never have happened. It's disbelief. It's lack of education. And it wasn't just about the Jews. I mean, 2/3 of all of Europe's Jews perished in the Holocaust. That was 1/3 of the Jews in the world, but also millions of other people, gypsies and people with disabilities and others were also, murdered in these concentration camps. It was horrendous. And the thought that people don't know about it, or if they've heard about it, think, oh, that couldn't have happened. It's just astounding.
Yeah, thank you for reminding us that it was more than certainly the Jewish population that was impacted probably the most heavily, but there were some 20 million total people estimate that died. And, I took my kids one time to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and because we've adopted children that were harder to place, there were not very many of my kids who would have made it out. I had kids who were black.
Absolutely not.
Kids with disabilities, right, who would have just been like, you're the first to go. Kids who had just small, minor physical disabilities, but they were not, quote unquote, perfect. And so it's like, look, like none of you guys would have made it through.
Well, and you only needed to be a small percentage Jewish, like your great-great-great-grand, whatever, to be considered Jewish and to be exterminated. I lost relatives there. So it's hard to find a Jewish family that didn't lose relatives in the Holocaust, and those are the ones that had survived the pogroms. And it's just devastating. And again, there were homosexuals that were killed. There were Jehovah's Witnesses. There were so many people that were murdered. And what they were trying to find was what they called the final solution to the Jewish question, how to get rid of all of the Jews in the world.
So, Patrice, it seems to me like we've seen a rise in anti-Semitism across the world. We certainly had the relatively recent incident in Australia. What work do we need to focus on today, not just today, January 27th, but 2026 and beyond?
And we have seen a dramatic rise in anti-Semitism over the past few years. And we've also seen a dramatic rise in hate crimes. I don't know what the solution is, but it's a broader question. It's a broader question about people respecting others, people not saying horrible things. We've had incidents in Utah lately. I work with an organization that happens to have Jewish in its name, but it provides services such as food banks and services for people with dementia. And we have to hire security now because it's not safe for people to come in there because we're worried about some sort of attack. We have hired someone for the entire Jewish community to just coordinate all of the security and all we have to pay for because it's not safe. I go out in public and I have people attack me knowing that I'm Jewish. And I wish I had an answer to all of this. I mean, obviously we are working to try and find ways to better get along. What people feel like they can say now and do now is unheard of before. I mean, it is things that people will say to me now I never heard a few years ago. I never heard this a decade ago.
What can you tell our listeners, Patrice, we've only got about a minute left, about just how we can remember what happened and how we can maybe create an atmosphere where it won't happen again?
I think we need to learn from our history. We need to learn from the past. We need to not wipe it out. I worry that right now there is such an effort to completely wipe out our past that people will not know what happened. And going forward, we need to respect others. We need to treat people with dignity, no matter what their background is. I mean, I look at Holly's family from all over the world and from all kinds of backgrounds. Every one of those family members should be equally respected. They shouldn't feel scared to go out on the streets, as some people I know are, because they're afraid they're going to be picked up. We need to treat everyone with dignity and respect.
Thank you so much for joining us today. That was former Utah Senator and former Representative Patrice Arent talking to us on International Holocaust Remembrance Day. So when we come back, we earlier in the show carried the press conference about this new bill related to working on violent crime. And Representative Tyler Clancy, who is one of the sponsors, is going to join us on the line next.
When Team USA is on, you can almost see the moment a kid starts believing they could be next. Now, while Xfinity can't guarantee that, they can guarantee something just as important, that your internet price won't change for 5 years. No contracts or commitments, so while your kid is ordering gear online, streaming highlight reels, or video chatting, your Xfinity internet price won't budge. And who knows, by the time the next Olympic Winter Games roll around, your kid could be getting fitted for their very own Team USA uniform, and guess what? You'll still be paying the same price for reliable Wi-Fi. And there's even more to enjoy with the Xfinity Gold Medal Celebration. Now through February 22nd, get their best price on gig Wi-Fi for 5 years guaranteed. Just $50 a month, plus get Peacock Premium included for 2 years. That's a $10.99 monthly value. Xfinity. Imagine that. Proud partner of Team USA. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Taxes and fees extra. Actual speeds vary.
When you crash your car, you get it fixed. When your computer crashes, you get a new one. But what will you do if you've been saving in a 401k or an IRA and the market crashes? If you're in your 30s or 40s, you'll be just fine. But if you're in or near retirement, you could be in trouble. Mike Stevens and his team at Capital Wealth Advisors are here to help. They can run a risk analysis to see if you're too heavily invested in the market. Don't let the ups and downs of Wall Street control you or your retirement dreams. Call 801-210-5500 today to schedule your risk analysis with Mike Stevens and the team at Capital Wealth Advisors. That's 801-210-5500. Crashes happen. Question is, are you ready? Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor.
Progressive Insurance knows pets, and one of the biggest differences between people and pets is that we don't eat things off the floor. But dogs definitely will, and it makes them so happy, no matter what it looks like, smells like, or what state of decomposition it's in. We all want to go through life that carefree, and that's also why you should get Progressive Pet Insurance, because they eat things off the floor. So protect your pet from all the questionable life decisions they make. You know where they drink from when you're gone, right? Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. You know, the big wireless companies say they have discounts for people over 55. But unless you're willing to sit on hold and ask, you're probably paying more than you should. At Consumer Cellular, there's nothing to hunt down. We're built for people 50 plus with plans starting at just $20. And our 100% US-based customer service actually answers the phone. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today and get your second month free for a limited time.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
The Management Minute is a service of the MBA program and the Shingo Institute at Utah State University. I'm Professor Scott Hammond. Ever seen an infection spread? I watched a team on the floor of a factory build a complicated technology. Every time they completed a task, they returned to the team leader, reported, and then got a new assignment with careful instructions on how to complete the next task. I asked why they worked that way. That's the way we've always done it, but it included words like oversight, tradition, evolving. In fact, the process was not evolving. A team of observers using the principles of the Shingo model in an hour of observation showed the team how to eliminate waste. Fewer steps, less cutting, less walking, more working. Production costs went down by 30%. That's all it took. Before long, the entire plant was infected with ideas of continuous improvement. Learn more about continuous improvement in an MBA from Utah State University. Go to utahstatemba.com or check out the Shingo model at shingo.org. I'm Scott Hammond. Hope to see you in one of our classes.
Since 1947, Whipple Service Champions has been Utah's most trusted name for heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical services. Got a high-priced repair bill from another company and you're just not sure about it? Call Whipple. Get a free no-pressure estimate or bring in their quote for an honest second opinion totally free. Whipple Service Champions is Utah's first place for second opinion since 1947. Call 385-273-7167 for your free estimate today. 385-273-7167.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. Beware of telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you. Callers threatening you with arrest or other legal action and demanding money are not from us. If you receive a call like this, hang up, do not provide them with any form of payment or information. Report the call at oig.ssa.gov.
The new Inside Sources.
Earlier today, we broke away to a press conference by Representative Tyler Clancy to talk about, and there were other speakers there as well, his bill, House Bill 137, to create a grant program to assist law enforcement agencies in solving violent crimes. And these are really some of the crimes that we call maybe unsolved, or at least crimes that we feel like have, I don't know, and we'll let the bill sponsor address this better than I, have
gone cold?
Yeah, gone cold.
So we do have on the line with us Representative Tyler Clancy, who is the House sponsor of this bill, well, the primary sponsor of this bill. Welcome, Representative Clancy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Holly, and thank you, Greg. I'm excited to talk about this.
Great. So can you just set up for our listeners then what this bill would do?
Exactly. I mean, the data shows that the enhanced clearance rates actually prevent future violent crime. So I'll put it very simply for you. And Greg, you've seen this up close and personal. When there's a individual that's going to commit a crime, they're about to pull the trigger. There's a lot of math that's going into their head. But the math that we need to make sure is clear is that you will be caught and you will be held accountable. And that in and of itself can actually deter people from committing future violent crimes. And so that's really what we're trying to get at the heart here.
Yeah, and I think that's really telling, Tyler, and I appreciate you very much, because there are a lot of times that people think, this I can get away with this. I'm going to walk away from this, and it doesn't happen. And sometimes it takes longer than it should, and sometimes victims feel a little bit frustrated. But what you're talking about here has got to be something that victims must be doing cartwheels over.
You're exactly right, and there's families of victims across the state right now that have felt this firsthand. And obviously they feel it when these cases drag on for years and years. And one of the things that's in the bill is even things like witness protection. So you're seeing particularly in gang-involved violence where witnesses, they saw what happened, but they're too afraid to come out and speak out. And that impacts our ability to solve crimes. And so we're trying to get at the heart of the issue, not just hack away at the branches.
So, let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. Can you tell our listeners some of the specifics of the bill, some of the things that you hope that law enforcement and others can do in solving and working on some of these violent crimes?
It's a great question, Greg. And today at the press conference, we highlighted all of the homicides that have happened in Utah over the past 10 years and then the clearance rate for each of those homicides. And so you're seeing that gap. And so what we asked, and this was something that Representative Verona Malga, a great leader from West Valley City, has worked on our violence task force, is what is that difference? And it was everything from new technology that investigators need to be up to date on, that they need to be trained on, and understanding different forensics. And it also can be that personal element where witnesses are too afraid to come and speak out because they've still got to live in that neighborhood where they don't feel safe. And so we're trying to get at the heart of what is causing that disparity between the homicides that happen and the ability to solve those and clear those homicide cases. That's where we're going to put that investment. So the bill creates a fund that's administered by CCJJ, and it also has an evaluation built into it. So we're not just funding good feelings or good ideas. We're going to actually see if it works.
So I'm looking at, I think it's an amendment, but it's $250,000 for the fund beginning with the 2027 fiscal year. How is this extra money going to be able to increase what you're hoping for? You did mention witness protection. What else is there that this money could be used for?
So there's also opportunities to train investigators. So things like social media have changed the game when it comes to violent crime. I mean, there's things that people can do to prevent violent crime if they're tracking the right things. If gang members are posting, this is my address, come and show up and see what's going to happen, right? But if investigators aren't up to date with the times and they haven't gone to trainings and learned about these new technology and new tools, they're going to be behind when it comes to investigating these types of crimes. And so training investigators, training detectives, if it's technology about things like Celebrite, forensic downloads for cell phones, and then also, once again, that human investment. So if it is the witness protection and if it is opportunities for better victim services, we need to invest in that as well.
And when just in my own experience, when you do have cases that go cold and then you have investigators who retire, it's helpful, I think, Tyler, to bring new life in and to look at technology, to look at what's happened in terms of DNA and in terms of even artificial intelligence, and give new investigators and new law enforcement sort of a kick in the pants a little bit to say, hey, let's reopen this case. There's some other things we can be doing here. So to me, this just makes all kinds of sense.
Well said, Greg. And I've just got to give a hat tip to the great detective. I think he's the best detective in the state of Utah, Ben Pender. He solved, and at our event tonight, you'll hear from Aaron Ryan from the Sherry Black Foundation. But Sherry Black, as you know, was tragically murdered in a random act of violence. It took over 10 years to bring closure to that family. Detective Pender went to several different states to test DNA samples. He knocked on thousands of doors and man hours. That's the kind of approach that we need in our criminal justice system, because our neighbors, our friends, our loved ones deserve nothing less.
So, Representative, you mentioned an event tonight. I wonder if you could tell our listeners about what they could expect from that.
Certainly. We're convening national experts in criminal justice. Jennifer Doliak from Arnold Ventures, she's an economist. Charles Fain Lehman, who's written in The Atlantic about policing and inner city violence, and also state leaders, Attorney General Derek Brown, folks that are not in law enforcement, like the Sherry Black Foundation. So I think people who can come can expect to really get a keen insight into national trends, but also what's happening right here in our backyard.
And I'm assuming, just from watching the press conference today, that you have the support of law enforcement and prosecutors from throughout the state in doing this. In fact, it seems like you have pretty bipartisan support as well.
That's right, bipartisan support, and to your point, I would say cross-industry support. So this isn't a bill that's really just of interest of law enforcement. This is of interest to anyone who has been impacted by the scourge of violent crime. Everyone sees the need for this, and so we've just got to find the will to get it done and make sure that we can impact and enhance our clearance rates.
So where is the bill right now in the process?
So as you mentioned, we just got that amendment published that we're finding the number that makes sense there for that appropriation. So we're ready to move forward. We believe we'll be able to get it out of the Rules Committee and move it to either the Judiciary or the Law Enforcement Committee and begin to work on that and getting it passed.
Representative Clancy, can we just pivot for a minute, and can you tell our listeners, maybe tell us about your impressions of the first week on the Hill? We're about 8 or 9 days into it. A lot has happened.
Well, certainly. Well, as we speak, there's legislators walking to and from past me, and what really strikes me is that rural, urban, liberal, conservative, everyone's up here working for the betterment of the people of Utah. That's the one thing that always strikes me every time we come back. The headlines, I think, can be very divisive, but I think people would be really surprised about the type of collaboration that happens here on Capitol Hill.
That was what I found when I was up there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, this is also your last session, so I know you are focused on a number of things, but maybe outside this bill, can you just tell us one other bill that you're really focused on this year?
Certainly. we've talked about junk fees on your show, but there's another piece that I think is really important for workers in Utah, and that's reforming really harmful non-compete agreements. So it's HB 203, and it's making sure that we're right now we have workers that work at Wendy's. They're subject to non-compete agreements at Burger King and things like that. And just using that as an example, these are opportunities for competition in the market when you're talking about families who are working to make ends meet, who are trying to get to that next rung of the American dream. These contracts can really, really limit people in their pursuit of a better life. And so we're trying to make some common sense reforms that are pro-business, pro-worker, that ultimately just have a better impact on the economy of Utah.
I have seen that in my own practice, Tyler, so thank you for doing that. People come to you and go, hey, I can't get a job because of this non-compete.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, and a very, very well orchestrated press conference today. Good luck to you with that House Bill 137.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Holly. Have a great day.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to follow up on the shooting of Alex Preddy in Minnesota, the man shot by ICE officers over the weekend. And it looks now like the Trump administration is taking steps toward de-escalating ICE's involvement in the state. He's taken a few steps, and we will talk about that when we come back next.
11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Claire Scott. KSL's top story this hour. We're hearing from Salt Lake City's mayor for the first time regarding threats she faced from a man who was accused of stalking her.
He called for anyone to kill us on sight. He declared that we should die because of my politics, my actions as mayor.
Mayor Mendenhall spoke in front of a judge at a sentencing of Jason Guy Rogers in Farmington earlier this month. She says the threats have had a lasting impact on her and the rest of her family. Rogers pled guilty to stalking. The judge sentenced him to 60 days in jail and ordered him to never contact and stay away from the mayor and her family. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The head of ICE has been ordered by a Minnesota judge to answer questions about why he has not complied with a prior court order that would have required due process for those detained by ICE. Earlier this month, the court said that one detainee needed due process rights, but agents sent him to Texas anyway.
The court's patience is at an end, Chief Judge Patrick Schlitz wrote. Accordingly, the court will order Todd Lyons, the acting ICE director, to appear personally before the court and show cause as to why he should not be held in contempt of court. Now, it remains to be seen whether the Justice Department will appeal this.
That's ABC's Luke Barr. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 546 points. The S&P is up 23 points. And coming up, a chance for rain tomorrow. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 11:31.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
One Kind Act a Day is a program from the Semnani Family Foundation. One Kind Act a Day seeks to create kinder communities by inspiring daily acts of deliberate kindness. Their work includes programs in schools, businesses, communities, faith groups, and prisons where they help enhance the culture of kindness and increase a sense of community. The world always needs more kindness. No matter what our background or beliefs are, kindness towards others and ourselves is something that everyone can get behind. Kindness can be big or small, but the ripple effect can reach out in ways that we don't even realize. Wouldn't life be better if we were all a little more kind? You can do your part by starting today. All it takes is one kind act a day. Find out more and take the pledge of kindness at thepowerofkind.org. That's thepowerofkind.org.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody, Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I
I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have leaf filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install a Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
To get this special radio offer, go to leaffilter.com/deal for your free gutter inspection today and get up to 30% off. That's leaffilter.com/deal for up to 30% off. leaffilter.com/deal. See representative for warranty details.
Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s, brought to you by UCCU. Supercharge your savings at uccu.com. Here's Michelle Rowe.
At the moment, things are still running smoothly across I-15, all the way from Logan down into central Utah. For drivers that are in Provo, though, just a heads up, continuing construction, still slowing you down University Avenue and 920 South. Are you tired of dealing with missing teeth? Are you ready to ditch the dentures? The experts at Stubbs Dental can change your life with dental implants. Get started at stubbsdental.com today. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny skies and a high of 48 today. There's a chance for light rain and maybe even snow tomorrow. Highs remain in the low 40s. Right now it is 37 and sunny. I'm Claire Scott from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, we're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Well, I think everybody knows by now that there has been a second death at the hands of ICE agents in Minnesota. This time, Alex Preddy, 37-year-old man, a U.S. citizen, a nurse, was shot by ICE agents in Minnesota at a protest. And there has been a lot of information, maybe misinformation about what was seen by witnesses, and this followed after the Good shooting just a week or two earlier, and what happened. And it's interesting in this day and age that we have so many ways to look at these things because people have their cell phones. And in fact, Alex Preddy had his cell phone in his hand.
And he was recording. And what we know right now, is that there were multiple people who were recording with their cell phone this altercation. And Alex was seen going over to help a woman who was recording also with her cell phone. And federal agents started shoving her, and he went over to help stand in between. He was pepper sprayed, and then we know he was knocked to the ground. He was hit in the head multiple times and then shot 10 times. So we know that, but we've seen it from multiple angles, right? And I think with the Renee Good footage as well, not only did you have cell phones, but you had security cameras that were nearby that had footage. And I think one of the things that we have seen just in the time since that unfolded is major news organizations, including conservative, Trump-supporting, I would say, news organizations say these videos contradict the narrative that was coming out of the Department of Homeland Security immediately. I mean, Greg, not to be too graphic, but the blood was still on the road when they were calling him a domestic terrorist.
And you would have expected, just from my own involvement with officer-involved shootings, that before you start making statements, I mean, it's absolutely imperative that everybody take a seat back and say, let's do an investigation, instead of saying, well, she was doing this and he was doing that, and this was clearly an act of domestic terrorism. Because what it all comes down to when you look at a case like this, at least in terms of the authorities there in Minnesota, is what was going on in the head of the ICE officer at the moment he or she pulled the trigger, and were they in threat? Did they feel imperiled? Did they feel that their life or someone else's was in jeopardy? And if so, were they justified in taking the actions they did? Now, the video, I'll admit, does not support that in my opinion, but I don't have all the videos and I don't have all the evidence.
Well, and I begin to your point of saying that it's important to do an investigation, right? One of the things that I have learned, and I'm sure that you can corroborate this, is that for officer-involved shootings, they're put on administrative leave while it's investigated.
Immediately.
And it's not their own agency that investigates it, right?
Right.
You have to have another agency come in and look at that.
That's so that there's an independent investigation that's
right.
not biased toward or against the officer.
Except that what we have is that we know that the ICE agent who fired his gun has been reassigned to a different geographic location, but he wasn't placed on administrative leave, and that Bonvino.
Greg Bovino, right?
Yeah, that one, and we're gonna talk about him because he's going to California,
right?
That he said you're never gonna know the name of that officer, and then DHS wants to investigate itself.
Yeah, and we will know the name of that officer. I don't know how anyone can prevent that from occurring. I mean, there has to be an investigation. President Trump did move Bovino out and has moved border czar Tom Holman to Minnesota to make leadership changes in that city, in Minneapolis. ABC's Trevor Ault has more on the latest developments with that.
More protests in Minneapolis ahead of a change in leadership in immigration operations in the city. A crowd gathering outside the hotel where protesters believe Border Patrol Commander-at-Large Gregory Bovino has been staying. For weeks, Bovino has overseen the surge of immigration enforcement in Minneapolis. Sources now tell ABC News he'll be leaving the city as soon as today, with many Border Patrol agents leaving with him. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem accused Preddy of domestic terrorism, and White House advisor Stephen Miller cast Preddy as a domestic terrorist and an assassin. The White House refused to condemn Noem and Miller's false statements. But now there has been a shift in communication between the president and Minnesota's Democratic leaders. Trump said he, quote, seemed to be on a similar wavelength on a call with Governor Tim Walz about working together. And Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey says in a call, the president agreed that the present situation cannot continue.
And Trump's got to be reading the tea leaves. I mean, America is looking at this and saying, what are we doing?
It's too much, right? And I'm happy that there's a line. I'm sorry that this is the line, but we have even Republican governor from Texas, Greg Abbott, it's Greg Abbott,
right,
calling on the president basically to ratchet it down, and he's like the number one supporter out there for President Trump, and just even Kyle Rittenhouse, right, who we talked about yesterday. Kyle carried a gun to a protest and ended up shooting and killing 2 people, injuring a third. And he was saying, look, this talk about getting rid of guns, this is like not okay. I'm paraphrasing, right? But he was like, you can't be talking like that. But I'll have to tell you this. So President Trump was getting on Air Force One. He's going to Iowa, actually. So he was asked by reporters about the incident, of course, and he said, you can't have guns. You can't walk in with guns. You just can't. You can't walk in with guns. You can't do that. But it's a very unfortunate incident. That was his direct quote. And then we just had breaking news from News Nation saying that Trump is backing Kristi Noem, saying she's not going to leave. She's going to keep her job.
Yeah, and I don't know that you can have it both ways. But, I mean, the Second Amendment protects in Minnesota and in Utah and in every other state. At least most states have open carry laws. Minnesota's seems to be very similar to Utah's. We saw the incident involving the guy at the No Kings rally.
Right.
Arturo Gamboa. We've seen what happened in Minnesota. And in both cases, a individual was arguably lawfully carrying a gun in sync with the state law that allows for open carry, and they were shot. Right. And so, I mean, I know what Trump is saying. Well, you can't bring a gun to a protest, but that's fairly contrary to what our law is.
Well, not only law, but constitutional.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
It's the Second Amendment.
It's against the Constitution. So we have news that Trump says that Noem's not going to go anywhere, but there's also a Washington Post article that House Democrats want to investigate Kristi Noem, and they are looking at an impeachment push. So we know yesterday, after the president talked to the Minnesota governor and he talked to the mayor, that he also had a 2-hour meeting with Kristi, which might have been uncomfortable, but he had communication staff there, and I think they were working on messaging. But House Democrats are like, we want to impeach this person. We don't think she's qualified to lead this agency.
Although Trump has posted as recently as today, not long ago, that Kristi Noem's not going anywhere.
Well, that's what I'm saying is they would have to impeach her to remove her if she's not going to be fired.
Although, I mean, he may have thought the same thing about Greg Bovino a week ago. I mean, it seems like he's a candle in the wind a little bit when the public pushes hard enough on a certain issue and he can see where it's going, which is typical of politicians.
He's losing just tons of support, right? There's a lot of people now who are saying, look, I support a lot of his agenda. I don't support this. There is an interesting thing that I saw today, and that was that ICE agents are going to be part of the Olympics, sent over from the U.S. as part of the Olympic security team. And the mayor of Milan, where the Olympics will be held, is like, no, thank you.
Yeah, seriously.
We do not want you here.
A quote from the mayor of Minneapolis. No, thanks. No ICE. I think that country has every ability to say who will be part of their security team and who won't. And if it's an offer by the United States to say, we'll supply some help here with ICE, I can understand them saying no. If it's other law enforcement from our country, they probably would welcome it.
I don't know about that, right? And I don't think they were asking. So I'm looking at a BBC article that says the U.S. is going to send ICE agents to the Winter Olympics, prompting Italian anger. So the city's mayor actually said, this is a militia that kills. Of course they're not welcome in Milan.
Yeah, I don't know how the United States can say we're sending agents there. I don't know. It's difficult. The Olympics, we had such a high level of security when we had the Olympics here in our country. Yeah. I'm sure they'll do the same thing in Italy, but I'm sure that they've got plenty of security forces that can do the job.
Well, they have the whole EU to draw on as well.
Right.
Okay, look, it's been a very dry winter here in Utah. We've talked about it a ton of times, and now Utah's Governor Spencer Cox is asking us for a solution. The solution is to please pray for snow. We're going to talk about that when we come back.
Valentine's Day is a moment to pause and celebrate the love that fills your life. Duke's Jewelers in Springville believes every love story deserves something timeless, something chosen with intention and given from the heart. This Valentine's season, explore pieces that speak without a single word. Dazzling diamonds that catch the light, rich gold that feels classic and enduring, and colorful gemstones that tell a story all their own. Whether you're marking a first Valentine's together, honoring decades of devotion, or simply wanting to make someone feel cherished, Duke's Jewelers is here to help you find the perfect piece. Duke's Jewelers will guide you with care, offer thoughtful suggestions, and even wrap your gift beautifully so you can enjoy the moment, not stress over it. Visit Duke's Jewelers on Springville Main Street and discover a gift that will be treasured long after February 14th is passed. Because love is worth celebrating in the most meaningful way. Duke's Jewelers. Love elevated. Respiratory virus season is quickly approaching, meaning we'll see more flu, COVID, and RSV in our community. The good news is vaccines are available that will help prevent these infections and keep people healthy. For flu and COVID, everyone aged 6 months and older are recommended to be vaccinated to help protect ourselves and our families against serious illness. Fall remains the best time to be vaccinated. Respiratory viruses circulate year-round, but peak late fall through winter. Your doctor can recommend which vaccines are best for you and your family.
Brought to you by Intermountain Health and KSL News Radio.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. JD Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store and online. And now, the more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Plus, get free home delivery on most beds with base. Limited time. For JD Power 2025 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Check it out at a Sleep Number store today.
Save more on the brands pros trust at Lowe's. Right now, get up to 35% off select major appliances and choose from our wide lineup of top brands. Plus, save $100 on a Little Giant 22-foot multi-position ladder, now just $189. Built for strength, flexibility, and job site versatility. Pros, these savings will only be here for a limited time. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 1/30 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for more details.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. Brador USA is a world-leading French industrial baking manufacturer known for producing high-quality, authentic European breads and pastries, with each product carefully crafted to meet the highest industrial standard for everyone to enjoy. HR Manager Dan Kapitanov joins us with more.
Bredor USA brings French bakery expertise to North America, creating high-quality breads and pastries that meet the needs of modern chefs and food service professionals. Since 1984, Bredor USA has combined traditional craftsmanship with state-of-the-art technology to deliver innovative, easy-to-use products that meet the highest industry standards and delight our customers. Bredor is part of Groupe Le Duff and proudly supplies more than 100 countries worldwide. To support our rapid growth, we are investing over $220 million in a new manufacturing facility in Greater Salt Lake City, our 5th plant in North America. Construction began in fall of 2024 and will conclude in spring 2026, with production set to begin in April 2026. The site will initially create over 150 jobs and grow to 300 to 400 long-term positions, producing a wide range of artisan breads and pastries carefully crafted and specifically designed for the American market.
With Bredor's investment in Utah, the company is helping support the state's long-term economic growth while strengthening its manufacturing and food production industries. To learn more about their products and expansion, visit america.bredor.com. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
You can't escape a traffic jam. Know what else you can't escape? Seasonal allergies. And you might think you can avoid that coffee stain until... Oh, really? You can't escape a lot of things in life, but you can escape prediabetes. Prediabetes captures 1 in 3 adults. There are usually no signs of prediabetes. In fact, most people don't even know they have it. But with early diagnosis, you can change the outcome and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Take action by taking the 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. You might not be able to escape having this song stuck in your head, but you can escape prediabetes. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org today. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Inside Sources.
Well, is it time to pray for snow? I think that that started for me at least about a month ago. Yeah. I've skied 5 days this year at 3 different Utah resorts with good success. I mean, I've enjoyed it, but you can tell that the depth of the snow is like all-time low, and I think people will tell you that this is one of the worst winters, if not the worst winter for snow that we've had in a very, very long time.
Yeah, and the governor has done this before. He called for prayers for rain, I think, in 2021. And then again, last summer, when you remember the wildfires were really heating up because they were really down by where you've got your home in Torrey. So yesterday, he posted on social media saying, "We're grateful to the faith communities across Utah who are coming together this week to pray for snow. With more than 90% of our state experiencing drought and snowpack well below normal, this is a moment for unity." And then says, besides seeking help from a higher power, do your part to conserve water.
Yeah, I mean, we need to do something because we're on the cusp of February. Yeah. And usually at this time of year,
there's
Holly,
almost nothing.
The resorts will have something like 100 inches.
Yeah.
I saw one resort reported 5 inches of snow.
That's
How do you
just
open
terrible.
with a 5-inch base? I mean, and even 30,
Yeah.
40, 50, 60 is, you can ski on it, but a lot of runs are not open yet. A lot of areas are closed. There's some safety concerns because the snow gets hard. The resorts have done an incredible job. If you look at what they're doing with the grooming and that's all you can ski anymore is the groomed runs for the most part.
So, look, people on social media, a lot of them are not kind, and the comments for the governor are not really kind, saying we should do more than just ask for prayer, although he did ask for conservation. But part of it is you can't create water. So in the winter, what do you do? Because lack of snowfall this winter is going to impact our reservoirs and our summer.
Oh, yeah. You look at the reservoirs right now, they're low, and we expect, with spring runoff, we're going to have to start letting water out of them to make sure that that they don't overfill. That's not going to happen this year.
No.
And they all, at least in terms of those along the northern part of the state from Provo up to Logan, they all end up at the Great Salt Lake. And when that's the case, and that's your basin, and that's where the catch is, because if the Great Salt Lake goes down any much further, we're in serious trouble because it's cyclical. The snow comes from the lake effect from the lake. It's how we get our snow. The moisture goes over the lake. It creates moisture. We get more snow. And if we don't have those snow,
Right.
if we don't
It's
have the water, we're not
water
going to get the snow.
cycle you learn in elementary school.
Right, yes.
Evaporation and condensation, and
so-
then you get precipitation. Oh, Lexi, I can remember elementary school.
Yeah, I don't mind praying for snow.
I don't either.
I would not criticize the governor for that.
No, I don't either. But again, it's part of this broader conversation. We know that there are bills on the Hill. We know that we've got a Winter Olympics of our own coming. We're still 8 years away, but that doesn't feel that long.
No,
right?
and you have to wonder if we were holding the Olympics this year in Utah, we'd be in deep trouble.
So I saw a story earlier this week, and this was in the Deseret News, and it was about an athlete who had been at the original Milan Olympics, something like 70 years ago. It's a while, right? And he said that it was so bad, the snowpack was so poor that they literally had to ski across a road where people were trying to shovel snow so that the skiers in the Olympics wouldn't fall on the gravel. I mean, that was a pretty bad snow year.
That's pretty bad. Okay, well, maybe things could be worse.
They probably could be worse. So, look, how are you going to conserve water during the winter?
Oh, I mean,
Well, I don't water my lawn.
Yeah, you do things differently. I mean, you take shorter showers. You don't use water as much. And I find, at least as a homeowner, there's always something that's leaking. There's always a faucet that's dripping a little, or a toilet that doesn't shut down all the way. And you just have to be aware of that too, because you can look at your water bill and see what's going on.
I have to tell you my toilet story.
Uh-oh.
So, one year I got a water bill for over $1,000, and I'm like, what in the heck is this? And I called the city, and they said it's for this number of gallons of water. And I said that would fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And they're like, sometimes a running toilet can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. But we
can.
did have one toilet that was running, and apparently over the month it would have filled an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Yeah, people don't
that
realize
was a very painful
that's
lesson.
a huge problem. Yeah, and that's something that our water conservancy districts are doing, is they're saying, okay, we'll get you to conserve. We'll charge you a little extra money. Maybe a lot extra.
Yeah, I wonder, and we do have a texter saying alfalfa. I wonder if maybe there's some conversation about, look, we're not going to have the same type of crops this year. We have a little farmer's field really close to where we live. They do 5 separate alfalfa crops during the year, and they do take water.
Yeah, tremendous amount of water. And there's a lot of work, a lot of going on right now with the legislature as it relates to not only the Bear River, but the Jordan River, and ways to make that more efficient by getting rid of some of the
Those invasive weeds that
that are
up water.
sucking up all the water. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, pray for rain and fast for rain if you want to this weekend. Rain/snow, precipitation coming from the sky. So today, we've already talked about it, it is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, because this was the day, as we mentioned, that Auschwitz was liberated by the Russian army. And it's not the only thing that happened on January 27th, though, throughout history. So there's a couple of things that are kind of interesting. So in 1880, Thomas Edison patented his electric incandescent lamp. So 1880, feels like quite a long time ago.
Yeah, that was quite an innovation. We look back on major inventions and innovations over the last several hundred years. That's near the top of the list.
So do you remember when you were a kid getting the National Geographic magazine?
Yes.
Yeah, we did too, and we used it a lot. Now I subscribe to the National Geographic channel, but it was on this day in 1888 that the National Geographic Society was actually founded in Washington, D.C. I think they do tremendous work.
Oh, they still do incredible good work, and you still see their publications, and like you say, the Nat Geo channel.
Yeah, that's right. I had a daughter who, on her bucket list when she was a kid, is she wanted to be a National Geographic photographer.
Yes.
She's kind of shifted away from that dream, but it was like, I want to do that, right? I want to do that.
Oh, and you can just pick up the old magazines and just go through them. The pictures are just incredible.
We gave ours to DI.
Yeah.
So, it was on this day in 1973 that the Paris Peace Accords were signed, and that ended the war in Vietnam. Remember, there was a whole conversation about America's involvement in that war, etc. But that was on this day in 73.
It's been that long.
Yeah, it has. So, do you remember Monica Seles, tennis player?
Yeah,
She got stabbed
Oh,
so she
yeah.
was stabbed.
While
in
she was playing, somebody ran out.
Yeah.
Right.
That was April of 1993, but it was on this day in 1996 that she won a Grand Slam title. So this was after she'd been stabbed and then, healed, recovered, and got back into competitive sports, and then she won the Grand Slam on this day.
A feel-good story, yeah.
So 96, how many years ago is that? 30? I don't know. Yeah, because it's a 6. It ends in a 30.
Yes, exactly 30 years ago.
Oh, my goodness. And also on this day in 2008, so this is members of the Church of Jesus Christ would know this name. Gordon B. Hinckley passed away on this day. And then that was when Elder Nelson, President Nelson, became the basically the de facto prophet and was officially.
What year was that?
2008.
So he was a prophet for that long.
He was for a good long time. I could be wrong, actually. Thomas S. Monson was the next one, actually. So I'm wrong. Don't listen to me.
Okay.
But Gordon B. Hinckley passed away on this day in 2008, and then it was Thomas S. Monson, and then after that it was Russell Nelson.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think he was president that long.
So he was for a while. So anyway, today has been, we've got a lot of bills on the Hill.
Well,
I told you this morning there's like 630 bills already drafted.
What's been nice this year for me with what's going on the Hill is how accessible our lawmakers have been.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a lot of them from both sides who have been willing to come and join us and talk to us, some in studio, some when we were up on the Hill, and just talk about their bills. Because you've got to think, and I'm preaching to the choir, that they're so busy during the session that it's hard to just break away and come talk to a couple of radio heads. And you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But they've been accommodating, and I think that we learned a lot today from Tyler Clancy's bill, how we're going to do. That was something that I really enjoyed.
I'm super interested in the education bills that are kind of competing, right? Nonpartisan versus partisan elections. So those will be interesting to watch going forward as well.
Yeah. So what are we up to now in terms of bills? 600.
It's like 640.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get them all done, and they'll probably be 700 by the time we're here next week.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for Inside Sources today. Next, Midday with Maria Shilaos is up next to cover the latest topics being addressed on Utah's Capitol Hill and all of the latest news you need to know. Stay with us here on KSL News Radio. We'll be here tomorrow.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station. Good afternoon. KSL News Time is 12 o'clock noon, and this is Midday. I'm Maria Shilaos. KSL's top story.
Eye on the Hill 2026. Special coverage on KSL News Radio.